And of course, each one of you, because I'm sure that in addition to this crowd, this venue is also very important. It has seen many of such milestones that we have been able to cover. I really, the way Dr. Agrawal said that NITI Aayog is a kind of champion convener. We are trying to perform that role. And majority of you, most of you are trying to help us in taking this thing forward. So we started from FAME scheme, a very, very modest beginning. We had our own failures, you know it so well, FAME 1. Then we went in for the version 2. We re-strategized it, started pulling it off. Now, the entire conversation is gradually moving on to charging infrastructure, all the more granular, the awareness piece, the emphasis on finance, how to create a situation where both for the manufacturer as well as for the users, the availability, the access to fund becomes at an affordable rate. And now this heavy duty vehicle. Yes, this is one of the difficult tasks, I would say, but very important also. Because if 2.8 million vehicles in a year are logging some 100 billion kilometers, and they just constitute 2% of the entire vehicle fleet of the country, but are able to generate 40%, I mean, their contribution is 40% of the pollution, then probably they need to be addressed at this time. The best thing is that the numbers are very less. But the more challenging aspect is that we will have to create 3 hinges around which this thing can move forward. One is awareness. Now, I always say awareness first, so that I don't miss it out. And at the end, I realize that people don't know it. This conversation is only confined to hotels and seminars and webinars. So awareness becomes the first thing. Second is technology. It is very important to keep our OEMs by our side. Tell them that you keep your CTOs by your side, so that gradually during the course of the day, during the course of the progress, we are able to reduce the price, we are able to make it affordable. And third is the finance aspect, very important. I always see, when I always go back to this bus program, that the same program which was apparently looking to be so difficult, and how come that the entire West could never think of that, okay, let's aggregate it, as simple as that. That is what we do in each of the households. Rather, everybody is thinking of buying it upfront, and then it doesn't work. Once you aggregate, the prices come down. Once you harmonize, homogenize the demand, still more so. Once you ask the OEM to take the equal responsibility, once you share the risk, in each of these interventions, they gradually reduce the prices. So what I realized was that until we start rethinking on our assumptions, most of the time what happens is we start creating a construct based on certain assumptions. And then we see that why it is not working, because when everything is all right, that is the time when you have to revisit, when you have to rethink on the assumptions, and you have to challenge that particular assumption is not working, something else has to be done. That is very important. Let me tell you regarding the pace of e-mobility that you see today. It could just be there because we could realize that different vehicle segments, they are like individuals, they have got different demands. So the solution has to be differentially, it can't be one uniform solution. And then it started working. For two-wheelers also started working, for buses, three-wheeler also, that traction is gradually coming. Probably the same approach is needed for the trucks also, for the heavy duty vehicle. I must congratulate the way I have initiated that this wonderful occasion, this eFast India creating a platform. And let me tell you that this is not anyone's platform. This is all yours platform. The best thing of this global disruption is that no individual can take it forward. Nowhere in the world it has been taken forward by one kind of stakeholder, nowhere. I can give you stories and stories of some 24 odd geographies or 24 odd countries of Europe that how they have taken it forward. So where the city governments, the mayoral system they have, where the OEMs, the civil societies, the regulatory authorities, government, technology partners, their own technical institutes, once all of them collaborated together, then only they have been able to achieve. And then we said, okay, Norway has a phenomenal, Sweden is going this way, Denmark has created something innovative, Italy is moving this way, Switzerland is again amazing. So this is because, this is how they have done it. Probably it's time that we realize it, that it's a combined, it's a team initiative. And as Dr. Agarwal rightly said, at NITI, we are just the champion conveners. We do create policies. We do have takeaways from different kind of meetings, different kind of interactions with each one of you, and try to embed them into the policy, try to get into the conversation with different ministries, and try to pull it forward. So all the OEMs, and they are the most reputed ones, the responsibility is on you. You have to take it forward. You have to come out with this right kind of solutions. And this time, when we are taking this initiative, we cannot differentiate between what is core and what is peripheral, and leave peripheral only for the later on, because this is something where it is everything has to be coordinated. It has to be completely synchronized kind of orchestra that has to be played. So congratulations again to each one of you. I'm sure this particular initiative is going to be really, really lighthouse for the country. And I'm sure that in times to come, we would see, we can say with the same amount of confidence, the way I say with the buses, that the most difficult of the fleets, though the number has been less, but the most polluting of the most challenging of the fleet that has also been cleaned, that has also been made green. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sudhendra sir. So this platform would be working on three main topics: awareness, technology, and policy intervention, providing innovative financing solution. I would like to request Sudhendra sir to click so that we can have a launch video.
The freight sector plays a key role in India's economy, enabling the delivery of goods and critical resources. Nearly 71% of all
What's that? Apologies for technical difficulties.
We should not be losing excitement of it.
Exactly.
Okay.
The freight sector plays a key role in India's economy, enabling the delivery of goods and critical resources. Nearly 71% of all freight transported in India is done by road. With increased urbanization, freight activity will only grow. If left unchecked, emissions from freight activity will increase to 451% by 2050. At COP26, India committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2070, and the decarbonization of road transport is integral to meeting these goals. The Indian government has been making rapid strides in clean energy uptake and is aiming for the electrification of public and private vehicles through a slew of supportive policies. The focus now needs to expand to the electrification of road freight. The eFast platform by NITI Aayog in partnership with WRI-India aims to do just that. Bringing together different stakeholders, eFast will identify and support innovative freight solutions, test use cases in Indian conditions, raise awareness, and conduct evidence-based research to bridge gaps. The eFast platform will also provide technical and regulatory support to develop go-to-market business models. The next decade is critical for India's transition to electric mobility. Together, we can help India move towards a healthier, greener future.
I thank all dignitaries for formally launching eFast India, India's first national electric freight platform. As Sinha sir mentioned, this is just not getting limited to conference and hotel seminar discussion. I would like to take this opportunity to call upon 4 industry leaders who are already pitching for this path and taking those pledges. I would like to call upon Mr. Saurabh Palsania, Executive Director, Dalmia Cement. I would like to call upon Jawahar Balasubramaniam, Head Fulfillment and Logistic at Waycool Foods, Mr. Ganesh, CEO Electron EV, and Ravindra Mohan, Director Strategy Charge Zone. We would like to hear from each one of them their pledges for freight electrification. Thank you.
Well, respected Sinha Saab and Agarwal Saab and dignitaries on the dais as well as in front of me, I welcome you all up to this event, and we'll just like to tell about how Dalmia is shaping up and contributing towards the greener and cleaner energy. So it starts from our vision where we say that we'll be the leaders in building material and evoke pride in all our stakeholders through customer centricity, sustainability, innovation, and our values. And for strengthening it, we have a philosophy which talks about clean and green is sustainable and profitable too. Dalmia has a vision to be carbon negative by 2040. And for this, we have a clear-cut roadmap, which we have released in 2018 and in COP26. And further that we have a commitment towards EV 100, RE 100. And last few years, when we were at almost 15% in renewable energy, we are running at 40% today. So with the clear-cut vision and roadmap, we invite all the partners in electrical vehicles to please help us in fulfilling our dreams. And we have committed that we'll be at least adding 100 vehicles in next 1 year or 2 year, whatever possible. But then roadmap is for till 2025, we'll be having 100 vehicles running in our plant. And for that, we have already ordered 22 vehicles to one of the partners in Delhi only. And out of that, 2 are delivered and running in our plant. And LNG, which is, we can say, a low carbon footprint, we have ordered LNG also with Blue Energy, who will be releasing the first vehicle in coming week. And 25 such vehicles will be running in Tamil Nadu area, maybe by the end of this September. So with this, we also have collaborations across with to know more about the technology with India and abroad. In India and abroad, with we were the first founding members of in FMC, that is first college in first member FMC, and as well as lead it in UN-based platform, which helps in propagating the roadmap of carbon negative. So we all are happy to invite all of you to just be our partners in this journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Saurabh sir, for that announcement. Now I would like to call upon Jawahar Balasubramaniam, Head Fulfillment and Logistic at Vehicle Foods and Products. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. At the outset, I want to thank NITI Aayog and WRI for bringing up a platform like this to put everybody in the ecosystem in one platform, so that whatever focus and whatever policies that are going to come on will drive in the direction of fastening the medium and heavy duty vehicle electrification in India. At Vehicle, as a purpose-driven and India's one of India's largest agri-tech platform, we always have been driving our complete focus on ensuring a climate resilient supply chain in our complete processes. I can give you one example how to substantiate this. In a span of 18 months of time, we were able to electrify our last mile fleet from a mere 3 number to 21% of our last mile fleet is completely electrified as of today. And not only this, we have extensively committed ourselves to move towards 100% electrification of our last mile fleet by 2030, and medium and heavy duty vehicles, provided the correct ecosystem, will be moving towards electrification of the same also. And as of today, we have partnered with Climate Group on the EV100 initiative also. From our point of view, what we expect the ecosystem to come back and push the focus towards is we need faster electrification of medium and heavy commercial vehicles. The simple reason for that is 40% of all food that is being moved in India is being done in M&HCVs. So 40% of tailpipe emissions, even if we move 100% of all our last mile to electric EVs, 40% will come through diesel engines only. So having said this, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jawahar sir. I would like to call upon Mr. Ganesh from Electron EV.
Firstly, a warm welcome to everyone. And at the onset, I must congratulate NITI Aayog, WRI-India, as well as the World Economic Forum and all its other partners to collaborate and create a platform like this, where all the stakeholders could come and meet and share our experiences and take this industry forward. So thank you very much. Firstly, I think it's very rare that there is event focused on this subject, keeping in mind that today there are so many events happening on the EV segment. So it's a very important occasion. So thank you very much. And thank you for giving us an opportunity, to be here in front of all of you and, also introduce our company. So, just to quickly introduce Electron EV, I'm sure you must have seen the launch video where one of our truck is featured. We are a true new age, end-to-end zero emission mobility company. And we are one of the first zero emission mobility companies in India. We are here to revolutionize the trucking industry by bringing zero emission vehicles to scale. And as a company, with global inspirations, Electron EV was basically founded in 2018 in California, US, and in 2020 in Hyderabad here in India. Now, with the US and India being our initial go-to markets, with our company in US where the R&D center is, we basically design and build advanced powertrain systems, utilizing the Silicon Valley advantage that we have there. And at the same time, the Indian entity is focused on application specific vehicles, manufacturing them, and also being an end-to-end mobility solution provider and not just a vehicle manufacturer. Now, Electron EV, we strongly believe that staying customer centric, especially in the commercial vehicle segment, will allow us for the mass adoption of these zero emission vehicles. And in line with this belief, our proprietary technology stack will also facilitate high frequency, modular and scalable manufacturing setup for versatile market requirements globally. And also, with most of the startups right now in India focusing completely on the two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler, or even the buses segment, whether it is retrofitting or coming up with brand new vehicles, we've taken a little contrast approach where we currently are targeting basically the ICE engine, medium and heavy-duty commercial vehicle segment. Where we're talking about anything weighing from a 6-ton to a 60-ton, we will be, completely focused on this segment. So we've launched our platform called as Amber. So Amber is basically our prototype electrification project, where we've converted a diesel engine electric truck into a battery operating electric truck. So in the launch video as well, the picture that you saw is basically a 10-ton diesel engine truck, which has been converted. So this is one of our business model where we look at targeting the existing ICE engine vehicles. Now, apart from this, we're also working on a world-class skateboard as well, where we will also be building vehicles from ground level up. And like I said, the best part is we completely customize the vehicle for the commercial vehicle segment based on the client's requirements as well as understanding their operations. And having said that, we are very excited to share about our latest repower platform, which is Amber, where we basically showcased our first generation technology here. We've done extensive demonstrations across the country, and we're very happy to say that we've in fact received an LOI from one of the largest e-commerce brands, to start manufacturing 100 trucks for them in the next 18 to 24 months. Likewise, we've also got enough, inquiries from other clients who we've been doing trial runs, and we're looking at probably around 300 to 400 trucks to be manufactured between the 6-ton and the 60-ton category in the next 18 to 24 months. So that's where we stand at. And apart from the technology stack, we also have a new method to design and assembly, where we're looking at more of a microfactory approach, which will help us to expand and scale across the country. And at the same time, it's a very proud moment for us, being at the forefront of the sustainable innovation which is happening in the country. And as a testament, to Electron EV's innovation ability, we've in fact won, 2 state awards from the state of Telangana, because that's where we are based out of. We definitely feel that this is just the beginning. And, we are very excited about, this first milestone that we've created, and very excited about the fact that, we all want to, live in a world where we are very proud of handing over this world to the next generation. So we are very happy that we are making some impact there. And we would definitely love to get more support from all the key stakeholders of this industry. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We are happy to have you on the platform. Now I would like to call upon Ravindra Mohan, sir, Director Strategy Charge.
Good evening, all. Thanks to Mr. Agrawal, Mr. Dendu. We are a startup incorporated 2018 in Vadodara, Gujarat, incubated EDI, and we have been in DC fast charging. We have been able to set up the first DC fast charging for Ahmedabad Janmart Limited for Ashok Leyland in Ahmedabad, and now we have around 450 to 500 buses that we will be powering, including Bangalore, Patna, Rajgir, Chandigarh, and all. And we generally we are focused on fast charging, DC fast charging, and that is our forte. And it is our leap of faith we took, as Mr. Zindu has told. We knew if at some point of time, the intercity transport, either to move people or goods, will be the key for whole system to work. Because in India, we, like US and Europe, nobody has second or third car as EV. If it is going to become popular, it has to be first car as EV. So that is where, intercity, when you can intracity, you need home charging, 80%, or office charging, you can do any four-wheeler. So that is where we went. And when we are into highway, we saw the various development that is happening on the transport sector. And along with Kalyani Powertrain Limited, we are partnering with them, and happy to announce in mid-October, we'll start a pilot between Vadodara to Vapi for small parcels with pit stops, and see how does it really play out in the whole thing. And this is about 12-ton gross weight turner, which has been repowered by the technology fully developed in-house by Kalyani Powertrain Motors at Pune. And it is in the final lap of approval of ARI. You can say 99% has been done. And that is the reason officially, the time it happens, probably we will come and announce that along with them. But today, just to give you a glimpse of that, we are not talking from this platform. I'll request Mr. Siddharth to, can you just play a video for 1 minute? This is a 12-tonner normal truck chassis converted to electric power. That is what with I conclude, and looking forward to well wishes of this house. See that we are successful in this. We are a very small company, and we know what is taken for our. We are basically a crowd-funded platform for more than 200 investors who believe that EV is future for India, and we hope with the blessings of this house, we will give them the hope they put and see that it fructifies into a business for us and probably greater for the transport sector.
Thank you so much. I would like to request all dignitaries and industry partners for one photograph. I would like to call upon Mr. Joseph from NITI Aayog, who have been instrumental in getting this announcement partnership in place. I would like to request Mr. Sudeep from WRI-India to join us.
Sir, our hope is next time the audience will be on the stage is the whole electrification.
Can I request all dignitaries to be there just for a second for one photograph? Thank you, sir. Now I would like to call upon Ms. Akshima for the report launch.
What is the number that I could not understand? Now, the pledges that have been taken, and I got slightly confused, let me say. So where are the, so what do I take down in my note that what number is there, you see? EV 100, no. What precisely is the number? When, what time? That is what you tell me. Jojo, take down.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we'll be say reaching, almost say 25 trucks by before March 23,
25 trucks?
by before March 23,
Mhm.
and maybe another 25.
Maybe, definitely.
We are committed to be 100, maybe in another.
When we are taking a leap of faith.
Yeah.
Why to have a constipated leap of faith?
So
That
that
is,
is-
I have a liberal leap of
So that is, sir, the entrance is only the I get approvals. Otherwise, we are ready to be EV 100 by 30th of September 23.
EV 100 by 30th of September.
23.
That's really phenomenal. And where did we have the second? Yes, please. Now we must have, concrete things. So NITI gets confused. Please.
We are looking at 160 last mile vehicles electrified by March exit. This
Okay,
financial-
that's clear. Anything more than that?
Yeah.
You are welcome.
And all 490 of our fleet last mile vehicles to be converted into electric by 2025.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Try to prepone it, you see, if you can't increase the number. And the third one from the industry? Yes, sir. You said that you are from Gujarat, right?
Yes.
Principal leap of faiths come only from Gujarat. So please, over to you.
Yeah. By this financial, we'll electrify 10,000 kilometers of the highways.
Wonderful. That's one. Yes. Please. You are young naturally.
300 to 500 trucks.
To? 500.
500 trucks, which we will electrify or help getting electrified in the next 18 months.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So we have recorded the goalposts. You can't change it. Thank you. Thank you. No, sir.
Please, can I request Mr. O.P. Agarwal to join us for the report launch? And also my colleague Samita Shilidhar. So on behalf of NITI Aayog and RMI, we are pleased to introduce our report titled Transforming Trucking in India, Pathways to Zero Emission Truck Deployment. We're very grateful to NITI Aayog and WRI-India for creating this platform, and it couldn't have been better to launch this report than anywhere else. So I'm also going to request Joseph from NITI to join us, who has been working along with RMI team on this report. A transition to zero emission trucks represents an opportunity to proactively foster energy security, drive climate commitments, and lower transport costs. With this hope, this report, we intend to generate a bold, nationwide conversation about the need for swift, decisive, and informed action towards scale zero emission truck adoption. So thanks to NITI Aayog and WRI-India for this platform for launching this report. Requesting a round of applause as the report is getting launched. I'm also going to now invite my colleague Samita Shiledar, who has led this report, to give a very short glimpse of this report. Later in the day, we will have a more detailed discussion on what's in this report, and we would request your feedback and comments. Thanks. Samita, over to you.
Thank you so much, everyone. On behalf of NITI Aayog, RMI, we are pleased to introduce the report titled Transforming Trucking in India, Pathways to Zero Emission Truck Deployment. With this report, we are planning on generating bold nationwide conversation about the need for the swift, decisive, and informed action towards scale zero emission adoption. Realizing the economic and environmental benefits of ZETs, many countries are transitioning away from diesel trucks. European Union has set an objective to have 80,000 zero-emission trucks on the road by 2030. UK has announced pledge that all HGTs will be ZETs by 2040. California has ACT rule for manufacturers to produce more ZETs. Overall, globally, ZETs have increased from 5x, from 3,000 to 10,000 just in last 1 year, and that number is supposed to grow by 10x by end of this year. Scaling ZET adoption can enable India to differentiate itself in the global market. Freight transportation plays a critical role in ensuring smooth flow of goods and services to satisfy the needs of businesses and end consumers. As road freight travel continues to grow, number of trucks in India on the road is also expected to increase. As distance increases that trucks are traveling, reliance on fossil fuel vehicles will also continue to generate negative externalities like air pollution, adverse impact on the public health, high CO2 emission, and increasing transportation costs. Trucks account for less than 3% of the vehicles on the ground, yet lead to 50% emissions and over 25% of oil imports. ZETs represent opportunity for sustained operational savings from fuel cost reductions and also have the potential to reduce emissions from PM, CO2, and so on. In addition to the economic benefits, scaling the use of ZETs can yield health and environmental benefits as well. With dedicated production facilities for the ZETs, it is possible to have ZETs achieve the total cost of ownership parity for medium-duty trucks, and for heavy-duty trucking applications, ZET can feasibly reach TCO parity by 2027. Our report highlights the size of the ZET market, highlights the cost, oil, energy, and emission savings from the ZET transition, and digs into the total cost of ownership calculations. Then the report highlights technology, manufacturing, policy, charging, business model related solutions that can catalyze the ZET market and highlight importance of corridors as a way to drive the scale. ZET opportunity is entirely within our collective reach when supported by the entire ecosystem and can establish India as a global leader in zero emission trucking market. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, RMI team, for the report. We often have many questions. If we electrify, is it really profitable? What does that economics look like? So in order to resolve these queries, we have developed one tool at WRI-India, which will actually allow everyone to play with variables on light commercial vehicle, medium commercial vehicle, and heavy commercial vehicle. I would like to call upon Sudeep to explain this interactive, intuitive tool in 1 minute.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Sharvari. Like Sharvari mentioned, transition to EV in freight is definitely complicated. It's quite a challenge to do. And one of the major aspects of it is understanding what is the total cost of ownership for these vehicles when we're looking at when we're assessing the transition. Now, given that there is a constant change of technology, the unit cost of batteries are always changing, battery chemistries are always changing. This number keeps on fluctuating as the technology develops. Now, to address this, to address the evaluation, WRI India has developed this freight TCO calculator that leverages information from the industry and basically from the industry practices and pilots to give us a more accurate estimation of what the total cost of transition will be. This is a simple Excel. This is a simple Excel-based tool. It is what it does is that it plays with 3 different components. As you can see, it looks at the capital cost, it looks at the operational cost, and it looks at the travel details. What it does is it allows for you to change. It allows for you to change various parameters according to what the development is at that point of time, and therefore it is not. And therefore it can help you assess for different stages of technology and deployment. This is what the tool is available on the WRI website at wriindia.org/TCO calculator. Please have a look at it, and we hope that everyone is able to utilize it while planning this transition in freight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sudeep, for keeping it really brief. Before we move on to first panel, we would like to acknowledge this August gathering. We have people from Tata Motors, Volvo Electric. We have Joint Secretary DPIIT in the next panel. I would like to call upon Mr. Joseph from NITI Aayog to moderate our first panel and introduce our first panelist.
Yeah, thank you, Sharvari. And with this, ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me? Am I loud? Am I audible? Okay. So we get into this panel discussion, and the panel discussion is on technology and infrastructure barriers to unlock electrification of intercity freight transportation. So I would like to invite Dr. Surendra Ariwar, Joint Secretary, DPIIT, to please join us on the panel. And Mr. Aniruddha Kulkarni, VP Commercial Vehicles, Tata Motors. And Mr. Akash, President Bus Division, VE Commercial Vehicles Limited. Akash. Mr. Chandar Agarwal, Managing Director, TCI Express. Mr. Vineet Srivatsava, Infra Empire Logistics. Mr. Saurabh Palsania, Executive Director, Dalmia Cement. Ms. Pramoda, Senior Advisor, World Economic Forum. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining this session. We're really glad to have you here on board and to discuss the technology and infrastructure barriers to unlock the electrification of intercity freight transportation. And before I start the panel, I would like to give a 1-minute introduction I would ask each and every one of you to just briefly introduce about you and maybe, yeah, Pramoda, maybe start with you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pramoda Gade. I'm serving as a senior advisor on the Moving India and Emerging Markets Initiative under the World Economic Forum. We are, this initiative is about 8 months old in India, and we're working with Mr. Sinha and Joseph on accelerating the transition to electric mobility. Our initiative has worked so far on strengthening the supply side policies, and because it's not only important to create the demand, but we have to match it up on the supply side as well, make sure the entire value chain is strengthened and the transition to electric is accelerated. We worked with the state government of Andhra Pradesh recently, and then we're kickstarting a task force on medium and heavy duty freight electrification. And we will be working also on financing 2 and 3 wheelers. WRI-India also was working earlier today on this challenge that we all have, and hoping that some of those learnings can be also taken forth in the medium and heavy duty truck segments as well. So thank you, WRI-India and NITI Aayog team for creating this platform for collaboration. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chandra Agrawal.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests. I'm Chandra Agarwal, Managing Director, TCI Express Limited. Part of the TCI Group, Transport Corporation of India Limited. We are the oldest logistics group, started in 1958, and have seen the evolution of how the trucking industry specifically has evolved from what it was to where it is now and where it's going to go. So I thank NITI Aayog that I totally, that I actually completely have, give kudos to such initiatives. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Akash.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Akash Pasi. I represent Volvo and Eicher Commercial Vehicles, 50-50 joint venture between the Volvo and Eicher Group. We are in the business of providing transport solutions, primarily with 5-ton and above trucks, with both Eicher as the main brand on volume and Volvo in specific segments on trucks in India, mainly in mining. On the public transport side, we provide then buses from 12-seater to 72-seater, covering all different segments in India. Again, primarily on the mass side with Eicher, and on long distance specific high-end buses through the Volvo brand. My role is as president of the Volvo and Eicher bus business, and for VE commercial vehicles, the e-mobility space. I would like to congratulate NITI Aayog, WRI, and World Economic Forums and others associated who made this possible. I have to say that it was in December last year that NITI Aayog and the Department of Heavy Industries put us together in Goa. And that was a great exercise. You were there, sir. And we had about 100+ stakeholders there. And I was so proud that all of us could talk to each other. Because when you have a forum like this where you can have dialogue, it creates efficiency in change, and it does remove almost 50% of the bottleneck. So great to be a part of this and look forward to the next step.
Thank you. Mr. Aniruddha.
So good evening. My name is Anirudh Kulkarni. I am part of Tata Motors, and I head the R&D of Tata Motors. Tata Motors, I think, you know, we lead the market with small commercial, pickups, vans, light commercial, intermediate commercial, medium and heavy commercial vehicle, and buses. This is, I think, our product range, and we also engineer and market defense vehicles. Our plants are located at Pune, Jamshedpur, Dharwad, Lucknow, and other part of say Sanand and other locations within Pune also. Just for my information, Some information about me. I head the R&D as I mentioned, which is located at a 6 location within India. Pune, again, Lucknow, Pantanagar, Dharwad, and also in Jamshedpur. We take care of various product ranges in the fossil fuel, petrol, or which is gasoline, electrification, and also we as information is available in the open domain, we will be the first one also will be supplying the fuel cell buses to IOCL. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I call on Dr. Surinder, sir.
Good evening to you all. Congratulations, NITI Aayog, for leading these. It's one of the two major revolutions which this country is facing, the electric revolution and electronic revolution. It's a wonderful initiative. And I'm really feeling privileged to be in the midst of the honkos or the stalwarts of the industry who are just not leading the supply side, but also on the consumption side. And it's definitely a good initiative, which will go a long way. And myself, to introduce myself, I am Joint Secretary in Department of Industries. Gati Shakti, PM Gati Shakti initiative you might heard of, and also the logistics policy for the country. So maybe we are coming with the logistics policy, so we'll be talking about that in greater details. But good to be here in midst of you to discuss or to talk about a very important initiative in this country, which is definitely going to help just not the environment, but also the economy in a big way. Thank you very much. And we'll look forward to a nice interaction.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Saurabh Palsani.
So first of all, congratulations to NITI Aayog and World Economic Forum and WRI to set up such a forum where, see, all the manufacturers of electric vehicles and the consumers also are sitting together, and they can look for various opportunities because such initiatives call for a lot of collaboration and innovation across. And see, Dalmia Cement is the 4th largest cement company in India, and having a capacity of more than 37 million ton. They are almost having 14 locations across 10 states we are operating, where almost 10,000 vehicles we are using in inbound and outbound, which is for raw materials as well as cement, and almost say 500 tippers in our mines. Maybe say 9 mines we are operating where almost say 6,000 tippers, including tippers used in material handling equipments, excavators and loaders, where we are looking for electrifying all those material handling equipment also. And we find that here in the gathering only there are a few partners who can do that job. And we look forward as committed today that we'll be, preponing our targets and we'll be EV 100 by 30th September 23. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Without further ado, let me directly go into the questions, and I'll directly shoot the questions to Dr. Surendra ji. And so what do you think is the role of industries and freight forwarders in electrifying the freight sector? And we would like to hear your thoughts on this. And maybe I'll also add to this, what policy and regulatory interventions do you think we could push freight electrification by larger industries and logistics players? Maybe we would like to hear your thoughts.
Thank you. I think we just not be looking at what the freight forwarders can do.
Yes, sir.
In fact, I look at it from the perspective of what service providers in the logistics sector can push this electrification or this e-revolution, to say, as it concerns the electrification. Definitely, as I already said, like it's just not environment-friendly technology, and the mode of fuel. It is across the mode. All modes of transport can be adopting this form of fuel, and what we are today looking at is the transition when we are shifting from one type of fuel to another type of fuel, and those vehicles which have been running on the conventional fuels, the fossil fuel, they'll be running onto the electric vehicle. Now, electric vehicle, as I understand, is just the same vehicle with necessary transformation, which will enable it to use electric power as a source of, as a fuel. So yeah, so it's going to change the entire ecosystem. Since fuel still is the major component of the logistics cost, or the transportation especially. And therefore, if we have this kind of fuel, which is more environment friendly, and the most important aspect of the electric fuel, which I consider, is if it is not abundance, if it is not available in abundance, it is definitely available almost everywhere. It is hugely distributed, and therefore the transition would be easier. And all the logistics service providers can definitely latch onto this service or this fuel type as soon as it is available. So looking at the other side, or the so-called the supply side of the service or this fuel, I think we in Gati Shakti program, or PM Gati Shakti initiative which we have undertaken, we are looking at across the ecosystem of the logistics, which includes infrastructure, resources, human resources, technology, and everything. So we are, while looking at the modes of transport or transport sector as such, across the types of or the modes of transport, we see from the perspective of multimodality, all modes are converging or joining each other at one or other point. So we are developing the multimodal infrastructure or intermodal infrastructure. Now, with the same perspective, what I think is, at this stage, this is the right stage to reduce the time of transition. We can define the set of infrastructures which can be made integral part of the overall designs of the logistics or transport infrastructure, which is being created through thousands of the projects we are undertaking in Gati Shakti or otherwise, right? So at this stage, if I would suggest to NITI Aayog, since you are steering the entire initiative, to define those infrastructures with designs and specifications, which can be included in the design aspect of, or the planning stage of various projects related to infrastructure development. And further, in addition to this, we can also identify those special skill sets which would be required for transportation sector, or otherwise when we are switching over from one type of fuel to another type of fuel. There may be different methods, technology, or the skill set of the people in the maintenance sector or operation sector of such vehicles and such assets.
You're absolutely correct, sir. Thank you so much for focusing. The electrification is key ingredient in terms of the transportation cost, which is included in the overall logistics cost that we incur. And also, thank you so much for speaking about the importance of multimodality and the skill set that is required as we move from the transition from one fuel to the another fuel. And moving on, I would like to now invite Mr. Anirudh Kulkarni. So what, according to you, should the agencies consider to onboard the industries and logistic players in the overall scheme of electrification of freights?
What type of agency?
Yeah. What, according to you, should the agencies consider to onboard the industries and logistics players in the overall scheme of electrification of freights? What should we consider when we to bring the logistic players and other industries to bring them on board platforms like this, eFast India?
Correct. So I will try to give this
Yeah.
answer in a slightly longish way, and pardon me for that.
Sure.
What we are seeing right now, the transition toward the electrification, is a very unprecedented way, right? And sometime I think we are seeing it first time, or the only I think we'll be seeing it in the in our entire life, we'll be seeing it only for the, sorry, I'm just losing the point. I'm just trying to capture the answer. Pardon me for this. So I was just coming to the point that when we see this transition, we are seeing this transition in a different way at this point of time. We are seeing that the current fossil fuel or the fuels which are under discussion, in different fuel which are there like a biodiesel, ethanol and everything, those are also coexisting. And then the journey of electrification which is happening, that journey is seen in a different way. And that journey is seen that a journey of say TCO parity, journey of say cost parity. And it's a profit for both the organization and also for the freight and logistic operator. And that is what we are trying to see. In this process, I personally feel that there will be 4 or 5 steps. And 4 or 5 steps, why I'm saying like this, the India being a very diverse country, and there are many sub-segmentation which are there in the entire transportation industry or in the commercial vehicle space. You see like there is a last miles, small trucks which are there, and some of the people who are already working on that side, or to a intra-city kind of application where you require some sort of a 5-tonner or 6-tonner truck applications, or when you move to a large truck which is on say multi-axle truck or a tractor trailer, or also when we talk about the captive operations of the tippers and everything, the diverse applications are there, and the market needs for this diverse application are totally different in a sense that their business requirement, their duty cycle, their life expectancy, or their requirement which are coming or spelled out from the vehicle are totally different. And these requirements, when we talk purely on the cargo side, there are also movement of say people movement are there, passenger vehicles are there. So those are also to be seen. And this when we see this diverse applications, diverse requirement of logistics and everything, it also becomes very important that the business for them and business for the OEM is also taken care. So the aspect of say modularization, aspect of say the efficiency improvement in the vehicle side, or new technology introduction as far as the battery electric vehicles are concerned, or development of new motor, new battery technologies, those are become very, very important. And these agencies, when we talk about the entire ecosystem, then comes into play. So the suppliers or the vehicle aggregators or the aggregators of say cargo movement, though play a very, very important role. And with this, what is coming out like everybody start migrating in a 3 different phases. One is like a conversion from a present fossil fuels. So that means I'm say, talking about the entire ecosystem, fossil fuel to a base electrification. And that base electrification could be on various methods. Second phase could be on say efficiency enhancement phases, where it could be a transition fuels like CNGs, LNGs, biodiesels, some blending of ethanol will come into picture toward the carbon neutrality when the journey happens, like a 20-30% happens like this. So the entire ecosystem of logistics also come into picture about that. So development of infrastructure of creating say CNG infrastructure, LNG infrastructure, and also then toward the development of infrastructure for the hydrogen will come into picture. And when we are moving with a cost parity and a TCO parity in say late 20s or beginning of say 2030 also, the importance of say newer generation, higher efficient battery infrastructure come into picture. And that's why the ecosystem of localization of batteries, localization of cells, localization of say traction motors, localization of say power electronics, those comes into very those becomes a very important parameters which the supplier community, the OEM community, the capability development comes into picture. And I must say that the journey has begun, and various ministry also are playing along with NITI Aayog. They are supporting us in the development of capacity and capability within India. That is what I think we are saying. And the last part, which is I was mentioning, the real net zero kind of a journey, which is either through a full born EVs, or we say the hydrogen ICE vehicles, or we say about fuel cell stack. So the journey is not so simple, because we have to develop the system for India, which will work. And that is why the ecosystem for this also is under development. And this is, I think, the all stakeholders, supplier community, OEM community, logistic community, development of say aggregators, development of say digital systems within the India, all comes to picture. Then only the journey toward the net zero is feasible over say next 10 or 20 years like this. Thank you.
Absolutely correct.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for laying down the importance of bringing in the industries that localize the power electronics or the cells and digital industries. It's not just the OEMs. It is a consortium of all these players to take the eFast India platform forward. Thank you so much. And also thank you for laying down the importance on TCO parity and the cost parity. Saying that, I would ask what are the various business models that we could see in freight electrification? Looking at it's in the ecosystem is in the nascent stage. Would you throw some light on innovative business models from the global perspective? Yeah.
Thanks, Joseph. I'll just build on what Mr. Kulkarni has beautifully described. There is certainly some, in the short and the medium term, there is a need for somebody to absorb the technology risk, also some uncertainty around the residual value of batteries and the vehicles itself, and also any hesitancies that are on the performance of the vehicle itself. So in the short and medium term, while the OEMs are able to fine-tune these products for India, what business models that I see from international experiences of how electric trucks have entered into the markets is either as a pay per kilometer type of a model. And these models work best in use cases which are low utilization, so that there is no requirement that the high utilization tips the TCO in your favor. So a pay per kilometer use case business model will be very attractive. And taking it one step further will be truck as a service model, in which the maintenance costs, the repair costs, the charging, all this will be taken up by the operator. So all the risk will be managed by the operator itself when it goes through truck as a service. And these can come in form as a consortium approach, in which OEMs, charging providers, and the logistics providers can work together as well and create these models as well. So these are some of the experiences that we've seen internationally, and which I think will probably apply to India in the short and medium term. In the trucking sector, that might be more than a decade long, if you're being realistic, by the time we achieve our complete electrification of trucks. So that's how I see it playing out.
Yeah, thank you, Pramoda. The insight on the pay for kilometers, which the entire our national e-bus program is depending on the OPEX model. So you want us to replicate. We can look at the similar model in a large scale. Thank you so much for helping us with that. With this, I'll go to Mr. Chandra Agarwal and help us to understand in the freight electrification, the entire movement. There is a critical element of supply chain disruption with the global volatility. What would India could do, if you could share your thoughts on this?
So I think the most important thing we have to look at is the logistics cost, that it shouldn't go up with the electrification. We don't want a situation where our customers are paying what they are paying as of now. So that will depend mostly on the OEMs, that they bring out with products which are affordable for logistics companies like ours. That's the most important point, I feel, and I know. So I think what logistics companies can depend on the OEMs is for innovation. And that has been lacking since the time that they have been producing trucks. I mean, I don't want to be the devil's advocate in that, but I'd like to say in all these fields that, in all these forums, that the innovation has been missing from our OEMs, like be it Tata trucks or Eicher trucks or whatever, Volvo trucks. They have not been able to even bring out air conditioning in the cabins, at a low cost effective manner. So, I mean, that's something that one has to really consider, and how the cost can come down from their point of view, so that we as logistics companies are able to bring down our costs and in turn bring down the logistics cost of the nation. So saying that, I think the trucking companies especially play a pivotal role in the bringing in the technology to unlock the electrification of intercity. Now, we operate about 30,000 trucks per day, and not even a single truck is electrified. And we do it across 29,000 PIN codes across India through our 1,800 offices. And we cover from Leh to Kanyakumari is what our network is. In that, we don't even have one electric vehicle. I'm sad to say that, because we are not averse to anything of that sort, but we just don't have the infrastructure over here, especially from the OEM side. What the OEMs can do is that they can look at the Tesla model, where they lose money first, introduce the products, and then later, when they get scale, they start charging and making money, what Tesla is doing. And they've done it very successfully. So this is for all EV players. Think about it. If you really want to build the nation, sacrifice and then your profits, and make the electrification happen in a big way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chandra. I think Mr.
I
Anirudh
want
is
to
ready.
react.
Yes, please.
I want to respond.
We would love to hear your thoughts. The
Slightly,
innovation aspect, I think I would like to hear both, Akash and Anirudh, both of you could respond.
So, with due respect, I disagree with him. And
We are here to agree to disagree.
India is known for innovation, and so is the Indian OEM. Okay, the kind of the segmentation, the kind of a diverse market requirement which have nobody in the world have this. Nobody in the world has this, and that's why the Indian OEMs are taking care of those diverse requirements of the market and everything, which I feel, and that is what I'm just wanted to respond to that. That you spoke about the electric AC, or you spoke about some of the electrification aspect and everything. So, in my understanding, the journey as far as the electrification, or journey as far as the comfort, convenience, or the driver centric the product development, or user centric product development has begun almost like a 20-30 years back in the India. And what you see that the continuously the rising demand of, say, fuel efficiency norms, the safety norms which are coming out in future, the OEMs are coming forward and going beyond the regulation at many places. Let me complete. So that I just try to request, if I give you a simple example, like trailers when they move on the road, a typical requirement of the trailer manufacturer is that he should get fuel efficiency when it is a truck is loaded or going beyond the loading, which is we call it like a in our OEM language called as abuse, but I think in your case it is called as use case. Correct? In those use cases also, you expect that fuel efficiency remains very good. So the technologies like a lift axle came into India, or air suspension which came.
Sir, 9-ton truck cannot move above 30 kilometers per hour. If you see 9-ton truck, it is moving slowly like that. पावर ही नहीं है, हिल हो गया तो it's going rolling back. It is not going up. That is my problem.
I
Sorry.
think,
Okay,
I think
if
because
I have to
Yeah,
comment and yeah. So first I want to say we here to sorry for my words. We're here to cooperate, not to fight. So partnership and cooperation is the motto. And I seem to be squeezed between an R&D head and a top operator of truck operator of India, and it's sometimes it's not a very nice feeling. But okay, let in all in good faith. So I don't think that either you are right or we are right here as OEMs. I think there's a right and wrong on both sides. So first of all, let me just correct. I think there's no Volvo truck and bus for the last 22 years in India sold without air conditioning. So each one of them have air conditioning and they run with air conditioning. And probably the segments they run in mining, in Volvo trucks, and long distance in Volvo buses, and also intracity buses over the years are all air conditioned because the customer was willing to buy it, and probably that's why it went there. Coming on to the second fact, I think you said that for Tata applies also for Aisha brand. We are into the mass segments, mainly into volume, and the number of segments are quite large. And then end of the day, we tend to produce what the customer wants. Having said that, you did not agree. I would agree that we are 2-3 key manufacturers in India. We can drive change faster. So that is the point. But why do we give what we give? We give what we give because not that you don't need it. When you create a business, you create it for profitability. When you buy something from us, you buy a product for profitability. And the routes you run or the goods you carry for the companies you carry them, you probably don't get paid enough that you can ask for specifications or pay for specifications which lead to that. So this, I think the root cause, and I think that is what also on electrification, we need to see that a pull factor needs to be created.
Yeah.
So if we want to see electric trucks running on freight corridors in India, it is very important that the end customer has a demand for it. So as a government or NITI Aayog or WRI or World Economic Forum, you should look at ways, if I could say, where you can incentivize the end user with carbon credits or brownie points, I'm sorry for the words, on zero emission. Then that is the demand which will be created on the largest operators and small operators also on electric field, and that is what will come to us.
Yeah. Thank you, Akash. Before I come back to you on another question, I would like now Mr. Saurabh Palsania to respond on. So your heavy duty vehicle is currently one of the only electric variants in the segment. In terms of use cases, what are the challenges you're facing? Is it charging infra? Is it battery range? Or is it payload capacity?
I mean, before answering you, I'll just like to put a word where how the OEMs are, I mean, taking a way forward or taking greater step towards electrification. And we are the one who have experienced it in the last 2-3 years. So we placed the order on Infra Prime Logistics in January 21. And I think, I mean, I was sitting in the, workshop of Infra Prime Logistics on a Sunday, just to find out what they are doing. And from there only we placed the order on them. And maybe, I'll talk about the challenges that the OEMs are facing today. But the bigger step is that they are also giving those, retrofitted vehicles on OPEX model. And the prices, if I talk about the operating prices are far low, in comparison to the diesel vehicles. And secondly, the capital cost is also being borne by them. So not only that they are offering you the vehicles on capex basis where you are investing in it, but also on the OPEX basis. So I think my friend, who are operating logistics in India, they can also take those services with retrofitted vehicles. And on plain land, we do not find any, challenges in running those vehicles. See, now, another point is that maybe that people who who can afford and who have to pay, take care of the carbon credits in future, they have to start evaluating the cost also in socio-economic basis, not only on economical basis, but socio-economic basis, which talks about reducing the carbon footprints also. So maybe that support will definitely lead to a competitive world in maybe another 5 years, where OEMs, based on the volume of orders they are getting, they are able to optimize on the cost also. And there, I think we'll have to see what challenges we are facing today is one of them is supply chain. I think batteries and motors, which are being only imported from outside India and effectively from China, how, they can be supplied on fast track basis, and what more can be done to say, move from those batteries and motors to indigenous batteries and motors, where the innovation is required. How we can move from lithium to any other material-based, EV-based batteries, where I think the timelines are also less and the cost is also less. I think that will bring more and more, say, economy in the, cost economies in EV sector. And secondly, I think, on the finance part, if I talk about, say, how, it can be brought under the priority lending sector, how, the tenure of lending money or financing money can be for 7+ years, where these, good amount of credit period can be extended. And then I think government is working with the FAME scheme, which works for the government sector. State governments are working for EVs, which may be 2 or 3 or 4 wheelers. But how a scheme can be brought about for, say, trucks and buses, which is missing today, and what priorities or incentives can be even given to the private sector part also, which I think maybe that NITI Aayog and others might be thinking on those lines. But this is very important to bring about boom in the private industry for adopting EVs, and also to the OEMs who can be supported by this. And then I think one more important factor I'd like to highlight here is that when you are running a HSD diesel truck, it tentatively, generates 38 tons of carbon in its lifetime. I'm again repeating, 38 tons of carbon through its lifetime. When we run it on EV, it consumes 30 tons of carbon throughout its life. But when we power the charging stations with renewable energy, the generation is only 7 tons per during the year lifetime. So most important is how to develop this charging infrastructure effectively and on all the routes. And I think we at Dalmia will be happy to support at least in those areas where we are operating our plants. Maybe I think for our own drivers, our own truckers who are working with us, and in each plant, like we have got 14 plants across 10 states, and in each plant almost 1,000 vehicle comes in and out every day. So we are happy to support there, but then this charging infrastructure will definitely contribute to reduce the carbon emissions in a big way, than only applying the electrical vehicles. Lastly, I will one more thing where we can work upon, and where I think say how the economies can be brought about in electrical vehicles is through indigenizing in many areas, not only in technology part like batteries and motors, but also a support system to EVs. What are the other input materials to them, and how these electrical, say, charging stations can be prioritized through the renewable energy, and with less number of you can say how the cost can be optimized, and the power can also be optimized. Power cost is also optimized, and the grid can the grid power or grid which uses or which charges the electrical vehicles can be given say some subsidies on whenever it is being used for charging the stations. These are the few areas where
and also yeah, one last question, and it will be a common question to everyone to just respond maybe briefly in a minute before we close down. So what will your institution would contribute to enable the transition to electric freight under the eFast India platform. I'll start with Pramoda, please. Maybe brief a minute.
Sure. Thanks, Joseph. So the World Economic Forum, as you're aware, is works with public-private partnership and creating a platform for business leaders to showcase their ambition and just somehow like NITI Aayog for businesses leaders, you can think. We bring together business leaders so that some of these challenges can be solved at the highest level. So that's what we want to continue to do, be the forum for business leaders and who are forward thinking, who are putting forward their ambitions for net zero within the trucking space in India. And that's what we can vouch for this platform.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Chandar.
As a company, TCI Express is always pro carbon offsetting, and till the electrification happens, and of course we will embrace it with open arms. When that happens, we will be it would be an enabler for us. We don't want to be a game changer in any way because we are not burning any PE money. So what we will do is take it as it comes along, and till that happens, we are offsetting our carbon footprints already by putting solar power plants all across our sorting centers pan-India.
That's great. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your intervention. Mr. Ashwin.
So for us as manufacturers, I think as Eicher and Volvo, we are with both our brands already committed to this journey and long back started to work towards this destination. We think this is the future as we go on. Of course, as Aniruddha said there, the technologies might see different changes as we go on. CNG, LNG, electric, hydrogen, there are phases to all such things, but electric probably seems to be the main driver. From our side, then globally, Volvo already has committed that 50% of trucks we will sell by 2030 will be electric. In India,
is that also applicable to India?
I'm just coming to, yeah. In India, primarily we drive, given the cost considerations, our electric story with Eicher, where we already committed and deeply into the bus segment with electric buses running in, and now replicating and working towards with partners like you to replicate it also on the truck side. Truck is a much higher volume business, and therefore the possibility and ability to scope the volumes up on electrification will be much higher on trucks, and that gives the hope. And lastly, then I would like to add, it's not just about localization of, in today's age of either the motors or the batteries or the ecosystem around supply chain. It's also very much around digitization. It's also very much around, and that was said by Mr. Sinha also earlier, partnerships. No single partner can do anything themselves. And that is where forums like these will help, and we look forward to contributing in our own small way.
That's true. Thank you so much. Mr. Kulkarni, please.
Okay, so our contribution will be always through the product and also through the ecosystem which we are developing it. The product, as I was mentioning earlier also, the product requirement in India are diverse. So we are already supplying electric buses to various cities in India. And as you might have read in the newspaper, we have won the largest bus tender also. And around say 5,000, again, electrified buses will be flying in. So this will be the first contribution in the mass mobility kind of a people mover segment. That is the first. Secondly, also when I come to the last mile delivery kind of a ecosystem for the logistic area, there also we have recently unveiled our electric small commercial vehicle, which again goes into large numbers across the say various segments of e-commerce or say last mile deliveries or individual users and everything. There also, I think our contribution will be through the large numbers, 40,000-50,000, which is the order which we've already got. And then we also displayed our intention of electrifying the light commercial, which is again a large segment within India, which we are want to electrify, and we already demonstrated our the product in the Auto Expo. And the intention is also for the large truck, no heavy commercial truck side. So this is our commitment, which we are already indicated. But there is also commitment toward the net zero vehicles, really net zero vehicle, which is like a hydrogen economy. So the contribution also will come from hydrogen economy, and the H2 hydrogen fuel cell stack vehicle also will be on the road very soon from the Tata Motors side. This is the contribution toward the carbon neutrality. But there is also very important contribution which is coming out through the ecosystem development. So there is the transition toward the gross contract models which are there, creating an infrastructure for the efficient charging, improving, say, the daily usage or the energy consumption requirement, which we have to bring it down. This is the capacity and the capability development. This is again a contribution which we want to make it in the system. And the last contribution is for the connected vehicles, which is so important for everybody, a user. There are various personas in the entire ecosystem of the logistics. An individual vehicle user, or a fleet operator, or we can say a Munimji, which is sitting into those small depots and everything. So all those, what they require is a complete guidance through the connected vehicle platform. That's why the digitalization is also one of the another contribution which we want to make it. So our contribution in the carbon neutrality is through this 4 different wings or pillars with which we want to do it, but across the range of the commercial vehicles, not restricted to a 1 or 2. Entire range we want to do it through this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kulkarni. Now, sir, Surendra, sir. I really appreciate this noble idea of initiating this conversation and by NITI Aayog and taking commitment for the cause. Wonderful idea, and it's really interesting to see the supply side, the OEMs, the logistics service providers, everybody coming out with their ideas and commitment they would like to make to this cause. Wonderful. I really appreciate this. And I just want to make one point out here is, whatever cost you talk about, the logistics cost, production cost, R&D cost, whatever is the cost incurred by various service providers, I'll say even the manufacturing also for that purpose, a service provider is ultimately being paid by the society. Every individual at the end, or who's the end consumer of the service in any form, directly or indirectly, is finally paying for the cost, whatever you incur. And we also know any transition is an expensive affair. Definitely it adds to the cost of living of ourselves. And basically we are making it as a capital investment or improving the future, or maybe ensuring that in future we do not have this crisis situation. So it's about the social cost and the cost of the society. And that's a debate which we have been having. Right. So what I suggest, which I cannot do or the government cannot do through any policy intervention, is a kind of a development of a consensus among all the service providers, all the manufacturers, OEMs, or other intermediaries, everyone, maybe for the period of this transition, which maybe NITI Aayog can decide on the period of this transition, going over 2 to 3 or maybe 4, 5, 10 years, whatever. So there can be a period decided for transition. And during this period, if we can pause on our tendencies to inflate the margins, the margins constitute the major component of the cost of anything, any service or any goods or any product, the tangible product. If we can kind of adopt a moratorium on inflation, otherwise we do of margins, we can keep our margins low for a while, at least for the transition period. I think the cost of this transition can be minimized, and the cost of this transition, which is ultimately going to be paid by the citizenry in the country, that can be brought down. And for this, if there is any policy intervention which you think we can have, or NITI can mediate that policy intervention, you can always suggest. We can examine and evaluate its possibility. In terms of the provisioning of the infrastructure, as I said, as you have requested, that we should be coming out with commitments what we can make from the government side or from Gati Shakti initiative perspective. I can make this commitment. If you are coming out with definite design specifications of certain infrastructure called the charging infrastructure or battery swapping infrastructure, which can be made integral part of all infrastructural projects, I think we can consider that. And incidentally, member from NITI Aayog and executive from NITI Aayog is also a member of network planning group in Gati Shakti administrative structure. So those things can be brought into the fold, and then we can be future ready. Even if those infrastructure are not utilized today, I think they would be available for tomorrow, and they can be planned and made integral part of the project designs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Saurabh, maybe you can be brief.
So I mean, just before telling about what Dalmia is committed about, I have one or two more suggestions where I like to share with the present dignitaries and NITI Aayog and respected government authorities. So one is that on the front of how we can have fast track solutions through maybe IITs, DRDOs, and research institutes who can basically bring about a change in means battery system which can be developed in India. So can we have a system where we can ask these experts in the industry, say IITs or DRDO or ISRO, to start, maybe to start working on this initiative. Second is that, all the OEMs that how we can build up, or we can take inputs from industry specific requirement of sizing of vehicles, just to give a momentum to say increasing the requirement base or demand aggregation, like EESL has done in LED sector. How such a platform can be built up to get the demand, so that demand aggregation can be done. And then how these multilateral banks, or maybe Asian Development Bank or World Bank, can be looped in and to give a finance to, you can say, the small and medium scale transporters, so that they can also help in scaling up the demand side of EVs. And thus, I think we'll be helping the OEMs to bring down the cost.
Thank you so much.
And as far as the, say commitment from Dalmia is concerned, say we have, committed ourselves to be EV 100 first. Second is that we have committed that we'll not be buying, say, non-electric trucks now for our purpose, for our use within the plant. And thirdly, that we are promoting our employees as well as the transporters who are engaged with us to bring in to buy electric vehicles only. And lastly, we have been, like, as we were talking about the freight portal, we have a system of bidding for the route by the transporters in all our plants. They are bidding for the prices and then getting the, say, allocation of routes and quantum of dispatches. What we are trying to do is to, say, give a priority to the electrical vehicles to bid for the transport cost and get into business with us. So we, those electrical, vehicles, or those transporters having electrical vehicles will definitely be given priority in bidding. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for sharing the initiatives that your organizations or institutions is taking to take the electrification of freight forward. And also thank you for the interventions on awareness, innovation, skilling, and social economic credits and financial support that we require to the transition are very much crucial. And before I close the session, I would request all the panelists to stand for a photograph, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph, for moderating this session fantastically, and all panelists for their interesting views. This platform actually provides this collaboration, and also, yes, we agree to disagree on some things. Thank you so much. With this, we will have a quick 10-minute tea break while we set up the next session. Thank you so much. The tea is being served. Can we all get settled down so that we can start with session 2 of the program? We have networking dinner post this session. Let's continue these interesting conversations in that dinner. Can we all settle down and get started with session 2, please? I'm requesting Mr. Sudeep from WRI-India to moderate second session. The session is policy intervention and financing.
Hello. Hello. Can I request everyone to sit down? We are ready to start with the second panel discussion. May I request everyone to settle down? Good evening, everyone. We will be starting with the second panel discussion. May I request Mr. Preetam Banerjee, ADP, to join us on the stage. Ms. Vasudha Madhavan, can I request you to join us on the stage? Mr. Prashant K. Banerjee from CM. Mr. Uday Narang. Mr. Uday Narang. And Mr. Ruchi Shukla.
Sudeep, over to you.
Mr. Preetam Banerjee. No, I don't think he's in. All right. I think we have a 4-member panel this time, right? Just before we start, I think it'll be great for us to have a quick round of introduction and a little bit about what are we doing in this space now. So maybe we can start with Ms. Vasudha.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you, WRI, and thank you, NITI Aayog, for this invitation. My name is Vasudha Madhavan. I am an investment banker by profession, and I run a boutique investment bank, which is very focused and specialized on the electric mobility ecosystem. And it really started as a sort of the inspiration came maybe over 4 to 5 years ago when I helped one of the large companies in India, which was in diesel engines, diversify into electric mobility by helping them acquire a 2-wheeler electric company. And I could see that there was this huge gap in funding. There were all sorts of fluid business models which are not really fundable. And even when funding was starting to happen, these startups had only access to family offices and HNIs, etc. So that really led us to start this firm called Ostara Advisors. My own background is, of course, a little over 19 years in corporate and investment banking. I'm now based in Bangalore.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I request everyone to settle down? Thank you. Mr. Banerjee.
Very good evening, everyone. And my name is Prashant Banerjee. I represent Apex body of Indian Automobile Manufacturers Society, SIAM, based at Delhi. And our mandate is to advocate policy for sustainable mobility development in India, building the nation responsibly in a manner that self-reliant India develops with very clear targets on safety management, as well as the decarbonization of transport. So electrification, discussion, discourse, and migration is very close to our agenda. Thank you.
Mr. Uday.
Hi, my name's Uday Narang. I'm really, thankful to, both the organizations that have set this up. I'm just a disruptor, guys. I'm just a small guy in all this big world of, green energy and sustainability, learning from all of you. I'm the founder and chairman of OSM, Omega Seki Mobility. And, we're gonna disrupt this market. I don't know sure if I'm gonna be a unicorn or not, but I definitely gonna make a life miserable and hard for a lot of the big boys and big girls here in the business. I'm always been very bold. And I think this is one of my last challenges. I'm getting old out here. I see all these 25-year-old young men and women. And I think, you know what? Let's give these boys and girls a little bit of a challenge. And let's not, people say, I see these new world where people say that, this is a new world for young people. I think us old guys got a chance too. So listen, keep an eye out on us. We're going to do a lot of disruption in 3, 2, 4 tractors, last mile mobility. So, a lot of interesting stuff happening, and hopefully we'll be able to share some of that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, WRI, and thanks to having this opportunity for us. My name is Ruchir. I come from Shakti. We work with all our initiatives to support, to see that how fast this transition towards net zero happen. In line with taking along all the stakeholders. Our efforts are engaging a large pool of stakeholders. One side is a set of partners, think tanks, who work primarily evidence-based database analytics and bring in forward a lot of findings, what they see, capture voices on various forums like this event, and help policymakers and many other decision makers to take advantage of these kind of informations and find the next course of actions. I'll stop with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Preetham.
Hi, very good evening to all of you. I'm Preetham Banerjee. I'm a logistics sector specialist with the Asian Development Bank. As most of you would know, we are a multilateral lending institution. And we work with governments, both state and central. Focus for ADB of in recent years, especially in India, has been on logistics. We have been working with very closely with the government of India on a number of initiatives, including the Prime Minister's Gati Shakti Master Plan. But as you would be aware that for multilateral banks like ours, a critical element, whether it's for our technical support programs or for our lending, is now it's an important priority to also show that the project is achieving sustainability goals, including goals related to moving to shifting to greener modes, but also to see this kind of change of technology which will lead to reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. So to that extent, we are very keenly observing this space. We are looking at initiatives related to EVs. but also to other technologies that might, be able to leapfrog. And that's where we are. And, and thank you for having us here in this discussion today. And I look forward to learning a lot from all these very eminent experts that I have the privilege of sitting next to. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Vasudha, I realize that you might have to run. You might have a cut off very soon. Maybe I should just start off with you. We had in the previous discussion, we talked about what are the kind of support that we will require to deploy in terms of infrastructure, in terms of planning for intercity freight. This would also mean that there will be extensive amount of financing mechanisms that need to come into place, and especially for the first movers in this space. Could you talk about a little bit on what you think that will be what we will need to kind of achieve to mobilize something like this and catalyze something like this?
Yeah. So in almost every forum now that discussion goes towards electric vehicles, whether freight or otherwise, the biggest question that's raised or the concern that's highlighted is financing, right? Now financing is, I mean, I of course work in the area of private equity and venture capital, but financing here is referring to bank financing and or NBFC financing for really buying these vehicles, right? So it's very important to move to kind of really, you cannot attack this issue if you do not just drill down to the basics. So where is really how does this whole value chain work? All right. At one end, we saw Saurabh from Dalmia talking about the huge need and in fact the huge demand that he has. So if we were to electrify all of that, it's really a very, very interesting proposition. So at one end, we have the corporate customer, the enterprise customer who's ready to electrify. Okay. Then we have the next person in the value chain is nowadays an aggregator, right? An aggregator who necessarily need not own the trucks, but can be that company which will come to you and say, I will electrify. Just give me the business. I will find the truckers for it and I will electrify. He is normally an asset light mobility service provider, right? Now, the next person in the value chain that he or she would go to, would be an OEM or that person or the aggregator is dependent on having an OEM partner who has the right vehicle to be able to electrify for that use case or that need, right? Now, the OEM, there has still now been a shortage and now hopefully we see that scenario changing. So the OEM is able to provide a good enough vehicle, which will do the range, which will do the payload, which will do the charging time, swapping, if there has to be swapping, etc. So the product itself will be sturdy enough to electrify this use case. Then you need somebody to buy this vehicle and deploy it on that aggregator platform so that you can close the loop, really. Now, the person who has to typically buy it has to be a trucker or a ship or basically a small fleet owner or even a driver owner, right? For that person, there has to be financing available. So that is the point, at exact point at which when the vehicle moves from the OEM's factory to that trucker who will then, that is the point at which you need financing. Now, how do you solve that? Now, the whole challenge with electric vehicles is that it is a new beast. People, the financiers who could assess the credit or assess the resale residual value of a vehicle and affix an interest rate to that loan that they're giving on that vehicle are essentially, they don't have enough information. It is a new kind of a vehicle. So the most critical, and what's happening as a result, you have high interest rates, where for a regular vehicle or a car or even a truck, you could access anywhere from 8 to 12% interest rates. Now you have to pay 20% interest rate to buy a electric 3-wheeler or electric even 4-wheeler, of which there are very few models available. So the way to now get to the bottom of that is to use technology to assess what is the final resale value. That's one part of it. The other is for the OEM to give warranties, which will sort of backstop some level of risk on that vehicle. So when you, with the help of, and you could have a financier who could say, I will do a buyback, which again could be OEM related or not. So you have the financier having little bit of backstop, the OEM providing a warranty, and the technology provider, which could actually be also the financier himself, saying that I will deploy IoT, I will use the data that the vehicle itself is throwing up to absorb that data and assess the quality of the battery at the end of 4 years, at the end of 3 years, whatever, and assess the residual value of that vehicle. Once you've actually done that, you are in a very good position to now demystify this thing and price the loan in a way that it's now possible to buy, possible for people to buy. So this is really the deconstruction of this whole financing problem in my mind.
Like the EV financing issues remain quite consistent, whether we're talking about freight or whether we're talking about passenger. Remain buyback, understanding the value of the vehicle at the end of the end of life period is going to be a significant part of this. I'm going to pass on the question on financing to Mr. Preetam Banerjee, but slightly differently. I mean, we're looking at if we are looking, the technology and the cost of this technology is constantly changing, and the kind of infrastructure that will be needed as the technology improves also will change. So what do you think should be the strategy or multi-year strategy in terms of finance planning for this to kind of enable this, at the same time help us get maximize from the investments that we make today, maximize our investments for tomorrow?
Thank you for the question. I think it's a little complicated in this by the sense that we are talking about the private investment, which I think Vasudhari just discussed, which is on the rolling stock. The other is the infrastructure, super infrastructure you need, and this relates to, and then the question arises, to what extent do you want the government to play a role? Are you looking for the government to subsidize much of that infrastructure? I think all of these questions are a little bit, and this is my personal view and not ADB's, is further complicated by the fact is what variant of technology are we going to actually go with? What's going to stabilize? Are we looking at, as was discussed in the budget this year, are we looking at more of a, standardized battery swapping kind of a model where that becomes the norm and, India takes the lead, even for commercial vehicles? And therefore you build an infrastructure around that? Or are we going to go with charging stations along highways? And further complication is, we are seeing a rapid development in the hydrogen space. So if hydrogen space really matures and there is full possibility of that scaling up very, very quickly, then this whole discussion around the current model of, this goes away. You're looking at a completely separate set of technologies for your vehicles. So the question is this going to be the pager of vehicles, of green vehicles, where we went, we had that transition to pagers that we use and we went straight to mobile phones, and then that whole thing just disappeared. So to what extent should the government then commit public funds to a technology which we don't know whether will, play out more than 5 or 6 years? So all of these questions are therefore difficult questions. And, before joining ATB, I was I was with the Deutsche Post DHL group. So if I can take the example from what was happening in Europe in DHL with EVs, even today, the offtake of EVs in the commercial space remains somewhat limited. And it's not because of purely technology issues, it's because of the network effect, right? Because logistics, especially, one is the rolling stock, the truck itself. But the entire point of logistics is the network effect. And to have that network effect with EVs takes a lot of maturity. Now, the fundamental question that we need to ask is that if we want to make this transition, and since our resources are limited, both financial in terms of the private finance and also in terms of the government's ability to intervene, are there specific elements of the e-mobility in freight that we need to focus on. What we can learn, what at least we saw happening in Europe very successfully is that instead of the intercity bit, they focused much more on the intra-city. And there is good reason for that because, cities tend, you have pollution concerns, which are much higher within cities. You can link it to incentives. For example, we all know that large metros have these restrictions that, till 8 p.m. you can't have truck center, etc., etc. So that might be a way around it by, saying I have a smaller size LCV, which runs on, electric power that has the ability to enter even during these, curfew periods. Therefore, creating an incentive for fleet owners to invest in that kind of technology. So these are the kind of, small intermediate steps that you could take. And maybe if the technology and the financing models, both for the rolling stock private one and also the superstructure the government needs to create, which is much more easier to create, let's say, around the metropolitan region, and it stabilizes and the commercial model comes out, that I think will give much more confidence to both the government to invest in a more expensive superstructure of infrastructure, as well as for the OEMs, because, to start an entire assembly line, invest in all of it, that's also a risk that they will have to take. So, they see a product working, so they invest more in that. And for the fleet owners, because I don't think it's just limited to the financing. I mean, there's a whole ecosystem. I mean, think of the way we operate fleets over here. Something breaks down, there's always something in 3-4 kilometers that can take care of your vehicle. An electric truck is a completely different beast. The skilling you would need for just the repairs and maintenance on the road for it is entirely another thing that you will have to think about. So with all of these complications, I think this is my personal view, that you start with the intra-city, let that stabilize, and that itself will add power to perhaps the intercity bit. Thank you.
Right. Just building off your analogy, right? So we needed pages before we got to cell phones. There is technology that's going to be obsolete. But that de-risking also needs to happen at some point. Otherwise, we're never going to move in a particular direction in the pace that we want to move in, right? What do you think? Who needs to take that kind of? Who needs to de-risk that process? I mean, is it the government who needs to do this, or is it the private equity, or is it a distribution?
I really don't have an answer to that, but this is my gut feeling is, and I might be totally wrong, from what I hear, that the hydrogen space is maturing fast. So, and given the kind of product cycles that we have seen last 25-30 years, perhaps another decade you will have scalable hydrogen technology. So if you have a 10-year period, I'm not saying that's unimportant not to try things out. So then how do you test the water? So that was my kind of where I was coming from, that it's a risk for governments to commit large amount of funds, a risk for fleet owners, it's risk for everybody in the ecosystem. So why not try and see what is already working in other parts of the world, because it answers all of these challenges, which is your intracity bit. And there's a huge demand for that, given e-commerce. And as I was saying, with all the regulatory restrictions you have with movement of commercial vehicles in the city with the curfew periods, etc., this could be a good way around it. And if that works and it creates the kind of scales in a few years, that gives a lot of confidence to other, people to kind of attempt that, taking that risk. That's all. That's my view. I don't think one person can decide that's not going to happen.
Sure. All right. My next question is to Mr. Prashant Banerjee. We have the government has done a lot of schemes in terms of supporting passenger transport, EV in passenger transport, right? So we have the FAME, scheme, the PLI, the national e-bus mission, etc. What do you think would be what do you think we need in the freight sector to kind of mobilize this transition?
Let's be very frank that customer doesn't buy safety, customer doesn't buy environment benign vehicle, customer simply buy cost, and cost across. So freight segment is more sensitive to this factor compared to the personalized segment. So across stands for cost of acquisition, C stands for cost of convenience. R stands for cost of running. O stands for ownership. S stands for service. And S, the last S stands for resale. In freight segment, this across cost parameter is the single most factor which will decide whether the powertrain will be diesel, CNG, LNG, electric, hydrogen fuel cell, or your e-freight options. So let's be mindful that these 5 letters across, if you address acquisition by way of maybe OPEX, CAPEX, lease model, whatever model you derive, if that A is addressed for the freight, owner or fleet operator, and then you can address the convenience. Convenience maybe at, at his place of parking, at some kind of multimodal logistic areas, if you have a, charging infrastructure created. So cost of convenience is there. When he is resting or he is stopping and he has the option to charge, then it's fine. So convenience cost is minimal. Similarly, the running cost, as we all know, if the power, availability is subsidized in a manner that he is able to see that there is a cost of running is manageable. And then, of course, the ownership and service, you have to make sure that he is not, excessively penalized on service front. And at the end of the day, he should know that if end of life of battery or if anything end of life vehicle is happening, who is actually buying it back, a resale value. So cost across will be the single determining factor for freight, electrification. Thank you.
Right. My next question is to Mr. Uday. Omega Sec is already kind of committed to this transition. What do you think? As an, what do you think? What kind of incentives? Kind of an extension from Sir Prashant's question. What kind of incentives are going to accelerate this market? What do you think as a manufacturer, as an OEM?
Look, I think the key part, I think hydrogen is coming, but I think hydrogen, and I've watched it very closely, it's a bit far away. It's not 10 years, a long time. I think these days, 1 year, technology is changing so fast. I'm seeing, I work very closely with a lot of technology players, all the new battery powertrain players. I spend a lot of time with them. And I think, I think I'll tell you, I'm turning up tomorrow night, I'm in Thailand. I have an R&D center there. We're doing, we built a product called the Beast. The Beast is doing 38 tons load with, I've just done a run a couple of weeks ago from Bangkok to Laos, 300 kilometers, put the charger there, 300 back, because Laos doesn't have a lot of chargers. This is happening today. You talk to FedEx, you talk to DHL, everybody just talks about Amazon, Flipkart, some of these, but everybody wants to change. 2030, 2040, they've got global mandates to move. I'm seeing there's some last mile players here who we work closely with, and they're doing great job on the 3-wheelers. But coming back to your question, right? I think, for me, don't ask what the country can do for you, right? I'm sick of everybody saying, can I get a handout? And I'll tell you what, handouts don't work long. If you keep building your business on a handout, I will tell this to all the young men and women that are building companies. And, if you are going to build a business on government handout, it's going to be game over, right? And all these private equity guys that are giving you money, I was a hedge fund manager for 35 years. They are ruthless. They'll give you money, but then they'll beat you up hard. So build your business. Now, what can the government do? I think, Ms. Marvin talked about it, financing. It's like, if I was with PM for 15 minutes, I would tell him, we've got the Dula, we've got the party, but the Dulan's missing, right? We're not going to have a wedding here. We talk about PLI schemes. We talk about, FAME 2 subsidy. Until I'm an economist by background, demand without purchasing power doesn't constitute demand. So, I think the government can work. I mean, we are working on trucks. I'm going to be bringing the 1-ton truck. I've got a 3.5-ton truck running around this state all over the place. And the reviews are fantastic. I'm getting 200 kilometers in a single charge. The key part of all this is, I think, when the battery separates from the vehicle, and I think there's a lot going on in that space. I think battery prices have reached the top. That's why prices are up here. Trucks are going to be competitive. I'm going to make sure that trucks are absolutely plying this country. We are doing this in the UAE right now. We're the first electric truck company that trucks are running in the UAE right now. I'm already part of that. I'm working on Saudi. But the government can work on setting up policies where, I think it's not just the policy with respect to give me subsidy. I would like charging infrastructure. That is the key. If we can do fast charging, we're working on products right now where, if I can do fast charging in 30 minutes, I can give you 200 kilometers. If we do a run from here to Jaipur, and if I can wait 100 kilometers, the guy waits, or if he can stop at a truck stop for lunch or a dinner, if a half an hour gets to charge 100 kilometers, you reduce the cost and you make it, all the last mile players, we love to have it. So yes, intercity is important. Intra-city is also going to happen. But I think we've got to stop asking the government, okay? I have never seen a government so, and I'm apolitical, whether it's the state government or the central government, they are doing enough. I mean, look at anything this EV policy is being run. I mean, our prime minister is talking about silent revolution. He's talking about electric. It's not electric. It's anything which is alternate energy. Could be hydrogen. And I don't know, new technologies are coming up every day, right? Our young men and women are working on it. So I think building quality products, building safe products, one thing which I'm wondering a lot about, building 2 or 3 vehicles and talking about selling 1 million vehicles. I don't want to use the word, that's bogus, right? Building in the automotive world, it takes a long time. I am all for startups, but I think the government needs to crack down. What does the government need to do? On safety standards, on battery. I don't know if you've looked, I open up every battery that I use, and I'll tell you, buying cells from China and just putting them in a pack and saying I'm a battery provider, that's, again, bogus, right? Making sure in Europe and America, why are people scared? If I drink and drive, I know I'm going to be tagged. Here, make sure the laws are enforceable, including for me, because I'm an OEM. So I think, we've got to build an ecosystem without paying subsidy. It's great. A handout is great, but build a business. Make sure so you absolutely hit the nail on the head. Nobody gives a money about the environment when they step out of it. In India, they all sleep. Maybe gave me, right?
taking all along from the grid, renewable sources where it makes sense, not only to achieve the carbon footprint, to make it viable, economical, and also to enjoy the best advantage of electric as a fuel. I think last time we were talking, you can have it with something large items to wire. Okay. All those with some clarification, other than these sources being the wind and solar, you can have also stationary hydrogen as well. Fuel cell as well. Energy. That's one. Second is manufacturing. Focus. So starting step, and please understand, India as a thing to friends is India is not an easy market. It is one of the toughest market in my 3 decades of product engineering. It is world's best companies I have worked in multinational. The hardest nut crack is make a viable business and product or service foreign. And I think many of people who are of that, exposure have that. So we do look at where all OEM tier 1, tier 2, and all the way to circularity. Make a concept which can be all together, bring out this much stronger and above all, awareness and adoption. Another. Delivery vans and four-wheeler as well. Electric buses has been another success story, and now the trucks, as in the last panel we were talking, and prior to that in the early afternoon, when Sinaji was saying, a small fraction of volume but contributing largest emissions, right? So that drives us to look at it as a philanthropic community where we can deploy resources, collaborate, and bring out newer ideas, and take it back to really make that further impact. That financing is now, electric, I fully agree to many of the people who have said it's going to be there for long. Hydrogen per se, we talked. Hydrogen has two ways. We talked again in the last panel. One is take it straight as the ICE engine. Another is through fuel cell stack. Fuel cell stack, it's no other than the electric vehicle. Who says it's not electric? It's that. Pure electric. Only you reduce the battery by virtue of having a artificially created, a parallel created energy source. But it adds a huge level of other complexities. So it's first step. In next decade, we are possibly going to be using hydrogen in many uses in stationary applications. While it problems with the products, safe products, robust product, delivering the value to the investors, and bringing that satisfaction back and bringing the capacity, capability, deploy that further. Journey will be going to be always there today, tomorrow, hydrogen, something else will evolve. God knows, small nuclear power plant, you can have it on vehicle. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I know Ms. Vasudha has to run any minute now, but before she does, this question's open to everyone. What do you think you would be able to commit to enable this transition as an organization, as an individual? And maybe, we can go.
Yeah,
to the rest.
sorry,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So, hi. So I think, yeah, my firm's focus is really on enabling global capital flows from private equity, green funds, sovereign funds, corporate venture funds, and at the earlier stages, venture capital into companies that are involved in electrification, including the end of the value chain, residual value, and battery recycling, battery materials, everything. And I can tell you that when we have these conversations, and we've spent a lot of time in evangelizing the space and talking to funds about it, making them more comfortable, it's important that as Uday mentioned, the product is rock solid. That's extremely critical. So that requires a very strong focus on innovation and technology. You cannot copy paste and make something and just hope to make a business model out of it. So it has to be fundamentally very, very strong as a product. That's one. The other thing I think is corporate customers which are using, which ultimately I think, overarching trend that we are seeing is commercial usage of electric vehicles is progressing much faster than personal mobility, and all the enablers can be created, and you can achieve critical mass, economic viability, all of that much faster in a commercial use case. And freight electrification plays right into that theme. So I see no challenges in actually, apart from the ones we are speaking about here in terms of financing, product, R&D, etc., in actually fulfilling this vision of last mile, middle mile, and regional electrification of freight. I think current lithium-ion battery technologies can, with high payload capability, can electrify up to 300, 500 kilometers, maybe 350 kilometers, I would say at the max. And that's possible even to do intercity transport. So with payload, you can electrify medium-sized trucks. For that, we need technology to kind of enable the financing, so interest rates come down, like I said. And I can tell you that my pledge as founder of this firm is for any business that's building for freight electrification and has a rock solid product, either as an OEM or we are also working with fleet companies, and we are helping them, trying to get them funding. Is that in electrifying for their enterprise customers, if they can create viable business models that are scalable, I can tell you that we will help them get the access to global funding that they need. And we are currently in touch with several funds, and we will continue to speak to newer and newer enterprise funders, which will bring in this kind of equity financing and even probably debt financing. So that's my pledge in kind of supporting this movement.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much. And I have to leave. So please do excuse me. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Pritam, do you want to take this question?
Thank you. Thanks for that. I fully agree with you that I think what you mentioned is that it's a market solution, right? So it's a market-driven solution where there's a product that is viable operationally, the pricing is right, as Prashant was mentioning, and that will take off on its own right. And I echo what Uday said about the fact that the government is doing what it can to create an enabling ecosystem and focus on the right thing, the standards, the enforcement of those standards, and to the extent possible, the manufacturing ecosystem that can be supported. So from Asian Development Bank's point of view, we are also a client-driven organization, and our client is primarily the government, including the state governments. So to the extent that there are missions that are going on, both in the battery space, where the government is looking to find ways to create a robust manufacturing ecosystem over here, invest in storage capacities for batteries. So in all of those, we are engaged with the government, and we are definitely committed to providing support. In the logistics space, for us, it's a combination of strategies, right? So the focus is on creating greener transportation. So for us, it's just not about EVs or, it's also about transition to greener modes of transport, where, the whole multimodality comes in. So, greater use of rail, greater use of coastal shipping and things like that. And even there, not through ADB, but other organizations are looking at bringing in green technologies for those modes. For example, for ferries and for, for your inland water vessels and stuff like that. So there's a whole host of interventions that are looking at technology that will be able to use alternative fuels or EVs or other technologies that can look at this whole multimodal space. I think from ADB's point of view, it is for us to take small bites on how we can reduce the carbon footprint overall. And the first step for us is to look at this kind of change of mode where we reduce, at least for the intercity bit, the huge dependence we have on road, and see if we can do more with rail and other modes of transport. But as I said, this whole engagement is comprehensive, and that's our commitment to the country.
Thank you. Prashant, what's Siam's pledge here?
Our pledge is very simple. We pledge to decarbonize the transportation with a very clear focus on safer, durable, affordable, environmentally benign technology, wherein the electrification fits very well in the scheme of things. And it's a good idea that 4% of the vehicles, which contributes to more than 60% on fuel consumption, particulate matters, NOx reduction. So electrification of that segment will actually benefit all of us. So that's a very important segment of freight electrification.
Thank you. Uday.
I think, for OSM, clearly, I don't want our future generations, I mean, your kids and your kids' kids, to live in cities. I mean, 31 of the most polluted cities in the world in our country, unfortunately. Prime Minister is talking about a 5 trillion economy. If our future generations got to live with this AQI, I don't know about building a 5 trillion economy. We've got to fix this up. And I think the cost of health of our future generations is going to add up pretty significantly. So I think OSM wants to continually work on products, for this country, for globally. We want to work in building the ecosystem. Anybody, whether it's hydrogen, new technologies, battery players, charging infrastructure players, smart cities, solar, I want to work with all of them. This is my pledge. I want to give the rest of my life for improving this country. I keep saying, money, whatever, right? At this stage, doesn't matter. If I can save one life, that's as important as it. So I'm dedicated to the cause. I'm not trying to be a politician. I'm not trying to be, I have no aspirations to be a evangelist, but I think this is a cause, 35 years on Wall Street, I think wasted time. This is what this last 5 or 6 years is meaningful to me, to OSM. I think what's extremely important is all of you really think, and I know you talked about cost, but there's another cost to the lives and to our healthcare. And I think we all better start thinking about that a little bit, because the negative cost of that will impact all of us. So if you just look at the bottom line, which I do, I understand, but that has to be factored in. So we got to continually build the products. So I pledge really to keep working on this, whether it's 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, traveling, talking to people. I speak a lot these days at a lot of events because I want people to understand that this is important. And this is important more. In our Indian culture, we talk about, I want to send my son or my daughter and get an education, or I want my wife to wear this diamond or this jewelry. But mate, if your health isn't good, and you know what? We lost a really good man over on Sunday. I don't know if he's worth, 80,000, 50,000, I don't know, whatever 1,000 billions he was worth. And it took 3 seconds to be gone. Let's make sure we work towards building and by working on building the ecosystem is important. Rural India, pledge to rural India. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if we can't make a difference in rural India, this, Ferraris and Teslas of all of this doesn't work in India. This, an average man and woman working 500 rupees a day out there, those are the people that we got to make a difference. If electrification can improve their earning, their health, because they have that extra money. Women's education, Nari Shakti is important. We've got the most powerful women. In these events, I want to see more women. It's lovely to see so many women, powerful women here. That's what they are here for. We want to make that. So I don't know. I think working to build this is a pledge of OSM. And me, I'm done, man. I'm just going to work on this.
Thank you.
Yeah, a couple of things. One, as we as the organization Shakti, we're looking at large number of programs which we can support, where we can be part and parcel of this change, decarbonization in all the verticals we talked about: manufacturing, charging infra, adoption and awareness. Additionally, supporting financing or different models to do more ways and means of it. The second thing is we are keen to see how overall ecosystem brings out goals. Like very good happened in early afternoon with everybody coming forward with kind of a desires and commitments, maybe zero emission zones, some of the policies, or coming forward some newer ways of supporting the supply side. There have been a lot of work done in demand side, but supporting on the supply side. Manufacturing, in the manufacturing, there may be certain numbers which possibly people are like, today we saw commitments were from the absorbing how many volumes individual our friends have committed, but from the OEMs, how much more models they can produce, how many more commitments they have as social commitment or towards this journey, making it up to 2070 as a 100% decarbonized. So these are the few early thinking which comes to my mind, and I'll pause at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with all these pledges and all these promising pledges, I think we are off to a good start with this platform. Looking forward to more work, more cooperation and more engagement with you guys. And thank you so much for your time. I just ask for all of us to stand up and just take one photograph, and then we can move on to the next session.
Sudeep, thank you so much for wonderful session, and thank you all to all panelists for those insights. Yes, we all agree to one fact that we need to deliver a better world to our children and probably our grandkids and future generation. So I would like to call upon Ms. Akshima for the next session from RMI India. Handovering to Samita.
Thank you to all of the panelists and all of the dignitaries who have shared their excellent remarks on the topic of zero emission trucking over here. I would also like to invite my colleague Murray on stage. The next part of the session is going to be a discussion session. Thank you. The next part is going to be a discussion session. So far, we have heard different perspectives of all of the panelists, all of the dignitaries. Now, we would also like to hear from you in terms of your reflections, anything in particular that resonates with you in terms of zero emission trucking, so that we can craft next steps better as a follow-up of this event. Before that, just to contextualize this discussion session a little bit, my colleague Maria and I will give a short presentation for 5 minutes, and then we'll open it up for the discussion. In this presentation, we hope to highlight how the global market shift is taking place, outline ways in which India can capitalize on the Z opportunity, the economic case for scaling Z adoption, and offer a series of strategies that can be leveraged to initiate the Z transition. So globally, trucking market is on the cusp of transformation with rise in zero emission trucking. Corporate social responsibilities, consumer awareness, global commitments to reduce carbon emissions have driven transport sectors to become increasingly conscious of embodied emissions. Major OEMs are announcing electrification targets and are scaling their manufacturing for Zs to meet rising demand. Scania, Volvo, Daimler, BYD, and several other major OEMs have launched MDT and HDT Z targets and have established joint ventures to deploy charging infrastructure. At the same time, many countries and states worldwide are also setting zero-emission freight trucking targets, and there are different multilateral actions aimed at accelerating manufacturing of Zs. India can join this transition as well. There are already different things happening in India that support this transition. For example, Ministry of Transport has expressed their intention to electrify Delhi-Mumbai and Delhi-Jaipur corridors. National Highway for Electric Vehicle is an intercity e-mobility platform that is coming up with different programs to facilitate charging infrastructure under Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Maharashtra EV policy states a target to have 4 key highways to be electrified by 2025. Telangana has committed to Drive to Zero campaign and has agreed to MOU to have 100% of new truck sales to be Zs by 2040. And at the same time, events like these also add on to all of this notion in terms of having zero emission trucking in India. Many private sector companies, including OEMs, logistic infrastructure providers, are also conducting several pilots. India is expecting growth in terms of the overall freight movement. The trucking stock is expected to increase from 4 million to 17 million by 2050. By transitioning this trucking demand to zero-emission trucks, we can see different benefits in terms of oil imports. So if the sales of electric vehicles, if the sales of zero-emission trucks reach the target of 85% by 2050, which can happen with suite of different policy as well as technology initiatives, the oil import demand can be reduced by 838 billion liters by 2050. This will also result in cumulative battery demand of 400 gigawatt hours by 2050 to meet the zero-emission trucking demand. This will lead to reduction in logistics cost from 14% of GDP to 11.5% of GDP. Overall transition to zero-emission trucking will also reduce PM and NOx emissions by 40% and abate 2.8 to 3.8 gigatons of CO2 cumulatively through 2050. I'll pass it off to my colleague Marie to share some of the highlights of our economic analysis from the report.
Thanks, Samita. Ultimately, the economics of zero-emission vehicles are quite promising. Under our analysis, we studied 4 different use cases in a scaled manufacturing scenario. And what we modeled was an MDT operating a short interstate route, a medium-duty truck operating a regional route, a heavy-duty truck also operating a regional route, and a heavy-duty truck operating a long-haul route. Ultimately, what we found when we modeled these scenarios is that a medium-duty truck doing regional and short-haul routes can yield an operational savings of 50 lakh over the vehicle's lifetime. And this led to a payback period of just 5 to 6 years, which was quite promising. HDTs, while they do have higher upfront costs compared to diesel vehicles, they also generate significant operational savings. When you produce a vehicle with manufacturing at scale, our analysis finds that HDTs or heavy duty trucks can yield 1 crore of operational savings over the vehicle's lifetime and yield a 10 to 18 year payback period. So to focus in on one of the most difficult to electrify segments, the heavy duty long haul segment, we constructed a detailed TCO or total cost of ownership analysis, understanding the capital and operating expenses of these vehicles. We find that with mature production, or when you produce these vehicles with a dedicated production facility, you can dramatically reduce the total cost of ownership. Additionally, with batteries achieving the global price average and improved charging utilization, you can further reduce the total cost of ownership of these vehicles on a feasible time horizon to achieve parity with diesel vehicles. So like most nascent technologies, this market, the zero emission trucking market, does face some challenges going forward. The first is sustaining enough supply or producing these trucks at a reasonable cost and a competitive market price. The next is demand for these trucks. To really set this market in motion, you need a sustained demand, and that's a tall order with a disaggregated trucking market and capital constraints. And lastly, to ensure operation of these vehicles, you need a strong infrastructure network. However, with innovative policy, financing, infrastructure, and other private-public partnerships, ZETs or zero-emission trucks really can become a reality. The first would be through supportive policy. Supply and demand side policies can send a clear market signal and really drive technology and private sector investment. And also timely incentives. Timely incentives can enable India to achieve economies of scale in terms of demand for these vehicles and coordinate supply and demand. The next is charging infrastructure. Globally, we're seeing successful public-private partnerships to scale charging infrastructure. And really this takes both a micro and macro level approach of looking at the needs on a regional, state, and city level. Lastly, the last two are technology and manufacturing. India can position itself as a low cost and low carbon manufacturing hub. And this really presents a promising opportunity. By leveraging its policy frameworks today and experienced manufacturing sector and dynamic startups, we forecast that technology and manufacturing in the ZET market in India can really take off. And lastly is financing. Financial strategies that we heard today about to reduce risk and improve access to credit will be critical. And innovative business models such as battery leasing and zero emission truck leasing can help the market grow. Ultimately, our report concludes and offers evidence of how cohesive public and private partnerships can coalesce to deploy the physical infrastructure and market conditions required to realize the benefit of ZETs on an accelerated timeline. So I'll now open it up back up to Samita to lead our Q&A and our discussion portion.
Thank you so much, Mari. Now we are going to open the floor and see if anyone wants to share any insights. So overall, as I mentioned before, we have heard enough from different panelists. We have heard insights from different dignitaries. So just would like to open for a discussion question. What additional insights based on your experience with zero emission trucking can you share with the group today? Anything in particular that might resonate or anything that you might want to add in terms of your experience?
Hi, this is Venugopal Rao. I represent Electra Green Tech. While there is no speakers to hear out, I wanted to say something. Being in automotive industry for 30 years and early entry into the electric mobility, what I have seen the difference. It's not about alone the truck. Electric mobility today is nothing but buying a mineral water bottle in a 5-star hotel. Because of the quantity, because of the acquiring cost, because of the service, those things. I heard saying that OEMs have to reduce the margins, OEMs have to do this, do that. That's not the case here. The case here is the quality and quantity. If it is coming up very well, and if the quantity is going up and the reach is increasing, and ultimately product price will come down is one area. The second area, as usual, the fuel advance payment. Now everybody says that battery is higher cost. Yes, because we are paying fuel in advance. We are not buying a fuel in the later stage like in a ICE products. So it is nothing but buying a fuel in advance by paying it in advance and repaying through the TCO and covering the emission norms and controlling the air pollution and noise pollution. And second thing is the VCs which are talking about the funding issues. Why these VCs are not funding as a working capital for the aggregators instead of running behind the retail finance companies and charging the ROI of 20%. When there is a sure shot of an income coming, like any VC funding on a startup, and if the startup is successful, then the growth is there and the resale is there and the money is there. But whereas the aggregator is showing the upfront the money because he is deploying the product in a right area and right client and getting the revenue upfront. So the VCs have to start looking at the shifting their funding towards the aggregators who are interested to deploy 50, 100 vehicles. In bus segment currently, personally, I am saying this, we have very good clients who wanted to own the buses. The only reason the bus cost is 3 to 4 times of current ICE product and there is no funding, even though they are interested. When we wanted to do GCC models for the transport departments, we get assurance of 10 years, government supports, all this happens. When it comes to the private, we give the product and after 3 years, if they say that we don't want this bus, where we will go? Same thing is going to happen in the truck area also. So truck has to be funded for 10 years or the working capital has to be funded to the aggregators, then the things go better. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anyone else wants to reflect on that? I think we have a mic over here.
Hi, this is Anand. I'm from Sun Mobility. They're into swapping. This was started by Chetan Maini. First, thank you so much for starting something like this. This kind of takes me back 5 years when two-wheelers, three-wheelers, when we were talking about fixed charging, swappable charging, and we were doing research. It actually takes me back 5 years when I see the OEMs. 2-3 key differences I see. Startups in that world, just as an introduction to the others, I looked at 300 startups as part of my old role, made 7 investments. So have seen most of the startups in this. The key difference between 2-3-wheelers and the HEV segment is small players and startups can get in and can win, whatever people say. HEV cannot. Right? That collaboration between existing OEMs and charging/swapping government has to happen. So for, I know InfraPrime, that there could be so many other players who are getting in here, but it's very different from that segment. When you all presented the TCO, my submission is, please consider swapping right up front. We did this 3-4 years late in two-wheelers, three-wheelers. We can see how it's working. I'm not saying that's the only solution. I'm just saying there's a credible solution. Put it up there. The gentleman spoke about certain use cases. We have similar conversations on with one of India's largest ports, one of India's largest retail and e-logistics players, trucks which are in the 10-ton to 50-ton segment. And I can straight away see how the cost goes down so much. And it's not just deferred. I'm not talking about a deferred cost. And I keep referring to a term called ACO, which is affordable cost of ownership versus TCO. Right? In India, we need ACO. TCO is very important, but unless I can afford it up front, it's not going to work. Right? So the only reflection I have is we've now spoken to and incidentally, Sun Mobility has also done 500,000 kilometers in a pilot some time back. We had stopped it. We're getting back into the sector. And we've done the economics, and I think it's fantastic. There's a big play for fixed batteries. There's a big play for swappable. And like how we're seeing this revolution happen for three-wheelers, two-wheelers, I see that happening for bus and trucks maybe in the next 2 years. And if you want a commitment from us, when we're working with the OEMs, I know in 2 years, we'll be putting up more than 500 to 1,000 vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Joseph wants to add another point of view.
So as an institution, what we are looking at is to scale up the models and the learnings that we have already achieved through, tried and trusted strategies in terms of bus, aggregation and the aspirations that we are going ahead. And we will also want to replicate that kind of learnings and see if we can aggregate. Is there a possibility to aggregate the demand? Excuse me, as Anand said, 500,000. Let's look at that kind of big numbers. This is our aspiration, and yeah, this is where we are looking, how we are looking at it.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Actually, my colleague Pranav Lakina, if you can also share some points about swapping in particular, that would be helpful.
Sure. Hi. So, Mr. Anand, thanks for sharing your points about including swapping as part of HDV and MDV electrification. So, during the when we were writing the report, we actually have included a section on swapping for medium and heavy duty vehicles. What we found out was it is very important to look at specific use cases that swapping can cater to. So as you mentioned, you have had talks with some of the ports. One of the recommendations that we have also made there is looking at a use case which could be closed loop systems where trucks are running multiple trips within a single day, and you cannot really afford any downtime on charging. Like if you're using heavy duty trucks and doing charging, through that, it could take like more than 1 hour to charge a single truck. But if the use case really needs to do multiple trips and very like no downtime of charging, then swapping becomes a very important proposition. And another factor to that is you're able to measure the variability in stock of batteries that you would require for a station. Because we don't want to set up a swapping station where you don't know what the actual demand will be, and you overstock the batteries and then you underutilize your station. So making sure that utilization is also like high, and then in that use case is basically frequent trips, shorter distances, but where there is lack of variability in demand. And we saw that in China as well. Actually, in 2022 till July, there were 5,000 HDVs that were sold, zero emission truck HDVs that were sold in China. 50% of those were actually battery swappable HDVs. And most of those use cases were these specific port or mining operations.
Sorry to take again the mic. We are about to launch our truck with the 30-ton capacity. Particularly, it is a tipper, which is in testing in our platform. The truck, which is having a 200 kilometers range, consumes 60% of that range on the truck operations, not the truck running, because of the tipping and because of the load carrying, and the distance it travels is 5 to 6 kilometers max. So in that kind of scenario, as you rightly said, a swappable option, if the economics working out, can be easily implemented.
Thank you so much for sharing those insights. Anyone else would like to share any, I think we have a question or insights over here.
No. Yeah, hi, my name is Puneet and I represent an intracity goods mobility company, CityLink, based out of Bangalore. To add to this battery swapping case is where we see a peculiarity there in terms of the resistance from the user, that is the driver ultimately. So there is an effort which is involved, and we were in fact with some of the Sun Mobility systems only, we were trying to do that with some of our vehicles. And there the effort that is required to take the battery out and then, put it into the kiosk or retrieve it from the kiosk and put it back is quite an effort for the guy. The battery is almost about 13 kgs, if I'm not mistaken, about 13 kgs. And that is a friction point. See, you have an alternative today in terms of fast charging. So it always comes to the convenience of the user when he's given this choice. So we have vehicles which are also on fast charging mode, and we are also trying out vehicles with battery swapping. So now the user clearly opts for a fast charging than a battery swapping as an option. So there, I think there's a constraint there, which probably needs to be addressed.
Anand, do you want to respond on that, or anyone else might want to add their thoughts? I think we are.
Hello. And also it adds the total costs on the ecosystem, because when the battery is inside the vehicle, unless you make it exactly half of what the fast charging is, but that is generally not the case, because you need certain mileage that will dictate what battery size is. So when it is in the vehicle, you need another one, maybe 30, 50, whatever required percentage more numbers outside to do this, to enable that 5 minutes or 10 minutes of exchange, manual or robotics.
I think we also have Sir just behind you.
Hi, I'm Parth Deshpande from the University of Cambridge. Just 3 quick points here. One point which we all missed was that the battery sizes are very important because batteries are heavy. So for example, in one of your trucks, you had like a 1,000 kilowatt hour battery, and that was a 30-ton truck. So that's already a fifth of the weight of the truck. And if you have a fifth of the weight of the truck, the battery, you can't carry payload. So you're missing out on that. Sorry, that. The other thing was about battery swapping. So as Sir said, we have fast charging available these days. And one advantage with heavy vehicles is you have rest stops that you don't have with, let's say, people that go on road trips in cars or on bikes. So if you have 2-hour rest stops or even 30-minute rest stops for that matter, that's enough. And if you have, let's say, 600 kilowatt fast charger, that's enough to charge a battery in 30 or 60 minutes. One last point about hydrogen is that when we speak of hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicles, it's important to look at the energy efficiency, because to get hydrogen, green hydrogen for that matter, you need grid electricity. And the electricity that you require is 3 times of the electricity that you would need to run a battery electric truck. So that's something that needs to be considered as well. Thank you.
Thank you for summarizing comparison of pros and cons of different technologies. Anyone else would like to share any additional thoughts or anything on the lines of what levers can drive zero emission trucking adoption in India, apart from the ones that have already been mentioned?
The other aspect, a very important aspect to this is the TCO. So actually the TCO today is not transparent, right? So if I am selling a vehicle and I am trying to explain as to how the TCO will work, first of all, to me, it's a new animal, right? So what a TCO has no meaning unless until I know the life cycle of this product. So that today is an enigma as to what exactly it would be. So I am calculating this over how much time. And then one very important aspect of this entire thing is the battery. So battery today constitutes 40 to 50% of the vehicle cost. If the battery is going to be kaput in just 1,000 cycles of charging, then it is roughly in our estimate, it's about 2 to 3 years of battery life. So if I am saying that this vehicle will be redundant in just 2 to 3 years, then you work out your TCO on per kilometer as to what you were showing a while ago, and then you understand as to where you stand. So now this adoption of something like we spoke about the intracity adoption, which is more easier because the battery capacities are lower there. Now, if you need faster adoption, then insofar as the trucking is concerned,
this is really fueled by individual buyers. So guys who buy one vehicle or two vehicles at most, so those are the guys who will fuel this revolution. If you are not transparent with the TCO to them as to what this would be, and then so where would the adoption come? And how much can fleet owners who can buy 50 vehicles, 100 vehicles at most can really do about this adoption? I mean, it would do, to me, it would definitely be that much limited if we don't address this.
Thank you so much. Thank you for highlighting some of the caveats with respect to total cost of ownership. I think there is another point in the back.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There is a point regarding the battery actually. 50% of the cost now contributing to the battery. And I am from Kalyani Powertrain. We are into component business as well as repowering. So we are facing major challenges in the batteries in terms of cost. And the second major point is in the market, there are 3-4 major players in the commercial vehicle segment, those who are providing more than 89 kilowatt of battery pack. And right now we are only available option with the bus type battery pack, which is consuming the load body size. So we need distributed battery pack, wherein those who are working in the distributed battery pack, but no one has got the ARAI certification, so we cannot use that. So to get this moving forward for the truck segment, actually we need that as soon as possible so that we can move forward. Otherwise, it is not possible, and it is going to impact on the TCO ultimately if it is consuming the load body. Thank you.
Thank you. I think ma'am wanted to share an answer.
Thank you. I just wanted to respond to the gentleman from University of Cambridge and his comment on one is the weight of the battery. So I think that is very well a concern, but I think the infrastructure, the logistics providers in the room can also can validate my assumption that trucks in the heavy duty and the long haul segment are usually constricted by the volume more often than the weight. So that is one consideration I think that we all need to keep in mind. Although the weight is a consideration, it is often magnified or beyond the restriction that it poses to logistics. And with increasing battery energy density, I mean, we're already at 350 watt-hour per kilogram. We are seeing more and more viable products with higher energy densities. And while we achieve that, that will no longer be a constraint. And how the United States has dealt with this is for electric trucks, they've given an additional 1 ton, I think, in terms of their weight. So they can go above what an ICE truck can weigh, an electric truck can weigh 1 ton higher to accommodate for that battery as well. So that is something, NITI Aayog and the policymakers in the room also can think about, is creating that kind of intermediaries for us in terms of policy support to move over those restrictions as well. And in the long haul duty segments, the energy density efficiency is one, the wheel to W2W kind of efficiency. But if you as green hydrogen and renewable energy becomes more popular in India, the efficiencies of hydrogen fuel cell and using the electric powertrain will become more and more evident for certain use cases. So, the battery electrics don't necessarily have to answer all the use cases. There will be certain use cases which are very well taken care by fuel cell electrics. So I just wanted to share that.
Now 1.5 ton to 2 ton of the battery, and you have permitted China is
If we can use the microphone, I think everyone will be able to hear the discussion.
No, no, this is one way of incentivizing, as he was saying. So this could be, I mean, so to increase adoption.
Bank manager always refers to RBI guidelines for giving a loan. Now today, when you go back and try to do this, today, the most important area which is happening in the industry.
No one can hear. Yes.
Sorry. I thought that it is too much I am talking, so I.
Maybe
Okay.
you can, if you can.
Short.
Yeah.
Short. Okay.
Summarize.
Okay,
his
simple, simple. I'm saying the two-wheelers are being used as a product for the last mile delivery. Is the two-wheeler is approved for doing it? It's a personalized transportation. There is no kind of any rule book. Second thing, physically handicapped senior citizens are supposed to have a three-wheel two-wheelers. Now, what we have approval after the vigorous fight with one of the Kerala physically handicapped, only rear side, if you have three wheels and front one wheel is approved. Now, if a product is developed with the rear side two wheels, that product is not approved in India. Now, electric mobility in China, this particular model is famous for the women and the last mile delivery and also senior citizens, which is not approved in India. So these kind of the reviews have to happen through the authorities and the NITI Aayog and implementers so that the changes will come. Sorry.
Thank you for sharing the insights. I think, thank you so much, everyone, for the very enriching discussion. We'll continue that over our networking dinner. But before that, I want to pass it off to Sharvari for the final next steps. Just in terms of this discussion session, we'll collect all of the insights, we'll summarize all of the insights and share the findings with you. And meanwhile, we'll also share the link of the report with you all, which has a lot of TCO and a lot of solution-specific analysis highlighted. It's already published. So today was the launch event. We'll send the link with the entire audience who is present today. No, it's not for sale. It's free. It's free for cost, available online on RMI and NITI Aayog's website. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, RMI team, for that insightful discussion. And I know I'm standing between you and dinner. So I'm really keeping it quick, but I have to give vote of thanks to every participant who is here. So I'm going to start with NITI Aayog, Surendra sir for his guidance, Mr. Joseph for his continued support throughout the process, and Surendra sir for his insight as a policymaker. We wish to thank our partner today, World Economic Forum, CalSTART, and RMI India team. We are honored to have such an amazing response from industry and wide participation from entire cross-section. Today, we have people from CII, All India Transport Association, all OEMs like Tata, VE, Mahindra, Omega, Electra, Kalyani Powertrain. We have 3PL logistic players like TCI Express, Blue Dart, Citylink, financiers people like ADB, IIFCL, Ostara, manufacturers like Dalmia Cement, Tata Steel, Vehicle, Dr. Reddy's, IOCL. So that covers a good cross section of the entire freight ecosystem. Thank you so much to all speakers, to all participants. And now let's start with our networking drinks and dinner. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you.